She clearly recalls when she came to Christ. Her and her husband's exuberance became excessive, even offensive. It's something Gail regrets to this day.
I think I regret that I was such a zealous Christian when I became a Christ follower as a teenager, that I turned my family off. And instead of telling them the good that they did give me, I tried to convince them of the good they hadn't given me, to my great distress. It took them 15 years to listen to Gordon and I spiritually because I had done that damage.
But there's another life lesson that Gail McDonald loves to share. It's actually more of a journey in progress.
My journey in prayer has come basically from the man George Mueller. Learn to move people by prayer alone. And that quote can get you a long way. Learn to move people by prayer alone.
With regard to prayer, Gail has a message for today's multitasking, texting, and tweeting digital age.
Prayer is just not something that you can do with multitasking. You have to think and you have to experience the listening that it takes to hear God's voice, and it takes time to even get yourself to the place where you are hearing, to get all those other noises out.
Here's to a noise-free prayer life. Our thanks to Gail McDonald for her honesty. This has been a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute, based on the book, If I Could Do It All Over Again.
Serving Portage, Summit and Medina counties, and more. This is Moody Radio Cleveland. From the Word to Life. WCRF Cleveland. WVMS Sandusky. WVML Millersburg. WVMN Newcastle. WVME Meadville. WVMU Ashtabula. Or stream us anywhere with the Moody Radio app, other streaming services, and at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
U.S. Postal Service workers held demonstrations in cities across the country on Sunday, including Cleveland and Akron. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy says he wants to cut thousands of jobs and billions of dollars from the Postal Service budget. President Trump has said that if the Commerce Department was to take control of the Postal Service, operations would improve. Authorities are continuing to investigate a bomb threat received by Akron's Garfield CLC. Staffers found the threatening message at the school's building last week. Authorities performed a security sweep of the Akron School's bus depot on Friday with nothing suspicious reported. And the Soldiers and Sailors Monument on Public Square has announced the popular Tunnel Tours return April 26 and 27. The events are meant to offer insights into the architecture of the monument and to pay tribute to the men and women of Cuyahoga County who served during the Civil War and continue to serve today. In sports, the Cavaliers crushed the Jazz 120-91, and the Penguins fell to the Panthers 4-3 in a shootout. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then mostly cloudy with a slight chance of showers this afternoon. It's going to be breezy with our highs in the upper 40s. At last check, partly cloudy and 42 in Cleveland, 43 Akron and Canton. Lorraine, Elyria, you've got clear skies and 40 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
The peril of dealing with ketchup that just won't come out of the bottle. It can seem like ages for a little ketchup to come out. So one big ketchup brand came up with a solution for this big problem. All you need to do is turn the bottle to a 45-degree angle and tap the 57 logo. Then the ketchup will come out easily. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:02 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
It's Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's Monday, everybody's favorite. Everyone loves a good Monday, right, Ron?
Sure, why not?
Why not? Yeah. And the whole team's together, I think, for an entire week.
Woo.
I think so.
I thought about
impressive.
that this morning, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a great week. You know, and we're all together. I love it.
I love the jazz hands.
Yeah, that's why you watch the live stream. I do things with my hands that often don't correspond with what I'm saying very well, but that just worked.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it was a jazzy tone with jazz hands.
A little bit of Ethel Merman feel to your voice.
I love her. What was her thing again?
There's no
Business like show business like no business. I know. Yeah, mark that down, Daria. Give that to the internet if you'd like.
It already hasn't.
Speaking of Daria, you went to see one of your favorite people over the weekend.
Yeah, Jimmy and I went and saw Tim Hawkins, who, if you don't know, he's a comedian. Loved him for a number of years. His stuff is very funny. We got to see him on Saturday. It was a great time.
Is he the one who makes up songs that are funny?
Yes, he does a whole bunch of parodies.
Did you have a favorite one? I'm not going to ask you to repeat it, obviously, but he does like husband and wife things, right? And parenting things. And...
Yeah, so my favorite overall, which he did not do, is things you do not say to your wife. Which just has me in stitches every time. But one he did that I was not familiar with, to the Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. He does the Sound of Starbucks. About how I think the coffee ran out and then there's a riot at Starbucks.
Interesting.
Which was very funny.
Do you remember any of the things that you're not supposed to say to your wife? Maybe I'll take notes here.
Have you gained weight? You look like my old girlfriend. You just look. It's on YouTube. Look it up. It's very funny. He's incredibly talented because he's not just a comedian. Like he can shred on a guitar, can play the piano. He's a really good singer. It's awesome.
And you know why that's funny, of course, when the things you don't say to your wife is because not only is it true, you don't say that to your wife, but wives can say that to their husbands with no consequence. Oh, you gaining weight?
You look like my old boyfriend. I don't think she could get away with that one.
Maybe. I don't know. I guess that's extreme. But there is a little bit of a double standard, I think. I don't know why. Maybe not with you two. I'm not claiming it's you two. I think. Lauren, would you make a comment?
No, because I would never say that to Eddie, my husband. So.
You never say what?
Wow, you're gaining weight? I would never say that.
That's good.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I had a beautiful donkey moment over the weekend.
Do tell.
Yeah. Okay. So I have this high tensile wire electric fence. It keeps the animals in. They only touch it 2 or 3 times in their lives, and they'll never touch it again. Okay. And they're fine. I've touched it. It hurts, but I'm good. So don't get mad at me if you're an animal person. I'm an animal person. So it had this snapping sound. There was a little bit of a short where there was a spark hitting another piece of something on the fence, and I had to go work on it. So I was in there, and if you don't know, we have 2 goats and a donkey, and he's a juvenile donkey. He's still kind of a baby. He's probably like 2 years old, 3 years old. And they live 30 or 40 years. So he's a baby. But I love them and trust them. They like me. So I'm like crouching, I'm like kind of almost kneeling on the ground, kind of facing the fence, knowing they're all around me. Some people would be nervous by that, but I don't get nervous by that anymore. I know they're not going to hurt me. They could if they wanted, but... And all of a sudden, I felt something on my neck, and Donkey Boy was coming up, and he started like kind of sniffing my neck, with the big floppy donkey lips. He started licking my neck.
Oh.
Aww.
Not you. It was
No, that's pretty
very
gross.
tender. It was a tender moment from my donkey. It was like lick, lick, lick.
Leave a tender moment alone.
Probably because it was salty.
Well, I wondered about
Sweaty
that.
neck.
I wondered about that, but I'm going with the alternative. Like he was just like, wow, you're my best friend. I can't hug you. I don't have arms. I have hooves. What am I going to do with these hooves? There's dogs I see regularly in this property. They do this. I love you, is what he was saying.
Interesting.
He likes to hug me.
Yeah, that's nice.
Well, don't make fun.
I'm not. I said that's nice.
He bit your belly, so
Yeah, he did.
maybe you need to soften up a little bit.
No. We're not on speaking terms, me and Cody the donkey.
He's such a nice boy. Oh, I love him. And then we had yeah.
There we go.
This is what goes on in my heart when I go see him every day.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6.
But if I walk over to that barn, everybody kind of like, "Oh, he's going to the barn." And they run to come and see me. They're
nice.
the only people looking forward to seeing me in my entire family.
And they're not even people.
No, but them and the dogs are happy to see me still. Other than that, yeah. Another one, a toaster debate over the weekend.
Okay.
What kind of toaster?
The one that toasts bread and bagels.
So like one
and
like a
muffins.
toast, the pop-up ones, not like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
toaster
Oh, sorry.
oven.
Yes, pop-up toaster.
Okay.
We have a lot of people, so we have the one with two sides in it or whatever. And we always have the debate about how we enjoy our toast. Okay, so Sarah likes bread that is slightly warm. I don't even think it counts as toast.
Because they're not crispy, crunchy.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a crunch.
It might have a light crunch, but you do have to really be careful and like listen and feel to see if you can notice it. And I like it toast.
You like it burnt.
I mean, that's what the family says, but I believe that toast is dark.
Is it black or brown still?
Primarily dark brown.
Okay, it's toast.
Thank you. Now, this isn't the debate, but how do you all prefer your toast?
Not as toasted as you, but not as least toasted as Sarah.
I like to have like a golden hue to it. So it's still got crunch, but it's not like I'm starting to taste char.
So like the restaurant version of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and see, the restaurant version is always a disappointment because they put the butter on it and then
And
bring
then it
to
gets
you,
soggy.
and then it becomes bread again.
Don't butter my toast. I'll take care of it myself.
Yeah, and so, but if you toast it properly, no amount of butter will totally take away the crunch.
Right.
That's burnt.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got breadcrumbs at that
I'm
point,
similar
Brian.
to you.
Now, so we have the dial that you turn.
Okay.
What do the numbers mean?
Who knows?
The higher the number, the darker it becomes.
This is where the debate came in. One of my family members saw on TikTok that refers to like the number of minutes that it's going to be in there.
It's like the same. It's going to stay in there longer because it needs to be darker.
And I thought it was a darkness scale.
Yes.
I was laughed at.
Some might actually, it might be a timer. I doubt for most that they've invested money to put a timer in there.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think it's that.
Well, but I mean, in theory, right? The more you turn it, the longer it toasts.
Yeah. Well,
Yes,
no,
that's
that's
true.
how it works. But no one knows how much time that actually is. You should time it. Because on mine, I know it's not like 5 minutes when I turn it to 5.
Well, and by the way, you would never turn it to 5, so how do you know?
I do turn it to 5.
No. What's wrong with your toaster?
My toaster is different than yours.
But you were describing a 1 or a 2.
Yeah,
No,
that's what
on
I
mine, a
thought.
5 will get me the nice golden, still crunchy, but not, on fire.
Seems like we need a new toaster, Ron.
Well, it was secondhand, so.
If I turned it to a 5 and got what you describe, I would be outraged. I'd have to push it back down again.
Someone gave me this toaster for free. I'm not going to look a free
I love
toaster
it.
in the mouth.
Ron likes it
It
already.
works. I don't need a new toaster.
So I'm not that crazy to think it's a scale of darkness. Like, but from a scale from 1 to, 8? No, not even 8. It's like 7. 7 is like burnt and 1 is not
Yeah,
even
it's not
toasted.
going to be in there for 7 minutes.
But you think it's a scale? Everybody's like laughing at me.
Yeah,
What is that about?
There's no way it's even an option to leave something in there for, say, 10 minutes, because I have seen some that go all the way up to 10. Like, you're actually going to
too
catch
long.
the house on
Yeah.
fire if you leave a piece of bread against the hot coals for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then I like an English muffin.
Sure.
Yum.
Those usually require, go up to the 5, maybe 6, and it needs a double push.
Sometimes, yeah.
The first time it pops up, it's like, have you even changed color? You're going back down, buddy. And then it smells like something burned in here. It's really frustrating. I'm going to be okay, though.
Yeah, you will be.
I'll make it. All right, 6:16.
They'll learn one day.
So I'm not that crazy.
They'll learn one day that you were right.
Oh, by the way, it's Play Week.
Ooh.
Oh, that's right.
James A. Garfield High School presents Mamma Mia.
How many shows?
Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday.
Wow.
All the grandparents
They're
are
all
coming
coming?
in separately from Minnesota to enjoy the big thing. And it's my son Matthias's debut as a 7th grader in the high school performance. My son Marshall, his senior year, his final musical. It's a momentous occasion in my family. I'm very excited.
Aw.
Yeah.
And they've done all like the kind of Disney-esque musicals over the last few years, where the music is like, you know, dee 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 dee. I'm singing a Broadway song, and it's not my cup of tea. This is ABBA stuff,
Right.
and they've got a smoke and pit orchestra, and guys, it's big. James A. Garfield High School, Mamma Mia, big.
That's
I can't
exciting.
wait.
I'm curious, though, can the Pierce Brosnan character actually sing in your performance? Theirs was terrible.
Yeah, my son Marshall was one of the dads, and I don't remember which one he's supposed to be. I think he's that one.
Oh, well, good for him,
I
then.
think so.
It's an improvement.
My son Matthias is the fiance,
Which is nice.
and he's engaged to a senior. So
Yeah. Well done.
I know he gets mad when I bring it up, but
I'm sure she does too. That's got to be embarrassing.
but he's a sweet boy, so she should be so lucky.
Right.
But when you're in school, it's so gross, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, Eddie's like that much older than you.
4 years.
Well, I guess it's more than that. But okay, 6:18. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I couldn't believe those two astronauts stuck in space. One of them loves Jesus a lot. How much? I'll share some of the details with you here in just a minute.
On Monday, April 7th, everything at Moody Publishers will be 50% off for the Book Lovers Sale. Shop brand new books like Killing Sin by Carl Clausen, This Light of Mine by former Moody Bible Institute President Joe Stoll, and Disappearing Seat by Heather Holloman, plus the newly updated Moody Bible Atlas, which will give you greater understanding by revealing the geographical and historical context of the Bible. Get these books and more at 50% off on Monday, April 7th, only at moodybooks.org.
I have come that they might have life and have it abundantly. That's a beautiful and compelling promise from Jesus. But what does it mean? In a world that feels like life is losing its value, its meaning, and its purpose, can we really live abundantly? Yes. In just a few minutes each day, you can join a growing community of believers who are gathering around CareNet's devotional, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life. This free, easy-to-follow devotional arrives in your inbox daily and invites you to grow in your faith, understand the sanctity of life from conception, and be inspired by Christ's abundant promises. You'll find biblical wisdom, inspiring stories from the front lines of pro-abundant life ministry, and the empowering message of the gospel. Make 2025 the year you begin your pro-abundant life journey. Discover hope, deepen your faith, and become a champion of life. Access your free devotional, 365 Days of Pro-Abundant Life at care-net.org/Moody. care-net.org/Moody.
Good morning, Cleveland. Thanks for choosing us to help you start your day. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
623 on Moody Radio. Glad to have you with us on a brand new week here on WCRF. So you've heard about this, I'm sure. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Sonny Williams, spelled Suni, spent 9 months in space. It was supposed to be like no more than 10 days.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, our friend David D. Felice, who's a former NASA employee and who made you an honorary NASA employee, David had pointed out that these people, as you go into space like this, you're briefed that this is a possible contingency. So it's, while it is a surprise from what they were planning, it's not like completely out of the blue that something like this would happen.
Yeah, they blasted off to the space station in June. Their mission was supposed to take between 8 and 10 days. And this feels like I work for NASA because I do. But helium leaks in the capsule's propulsion system and degraded thrusters, which are important for re-entry, upended plans for bringing the astronauts back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't I sound like I work at Mission Control right there?
No.
We've got some degraded thrusters, and we've got a helium leak here in the propulsion system.
Call off the countdown.
It felt a little bit like that. But anyway, they got back. Praise the Lord. I don't know if you watched, but they land in the capsule, and then they have to sit there for a minute. And then they have to put them in stretchers. And I've got more info on that if we have time here in a minute. But it's amazing what space does to your body in a horrifying way. But I don't know if you realize this, but Butch Wilmore was an elder at Providence Baptist Church in Pasadena, Texas.
Oh.
I did not.
And most people, I'm raising my hand, would be like, hey, guys, I'm going to space. Looks like you should find a new elder. I mean,
right.
I've got an out. It's a lot of stress to be an elder. Well, the church's pastor said that Wilmore's been part of the church for 17 years and made it a point to stay active in church even while in space.
Good for him.
Zoom calls.
The pastor said he's still listening to his sermons. He said we had a Bible Institute, and he took one of our classes last semester. And another one of the pastors...
Probably pretty bored.
Well, right.
If you're only supposed to be there for, 8 days.
I thought they would be like limiting your downloads. You know what I mean? I feel like, what's the bandwidth in space? Or maybe they're closer to the satellite, so it's faster.
Yeah.
But the church said he's engaged. He's serving the people as he's able. Somebody added that he's been live streaming services and has even been calling elderly members of the church to check in on them while he orbited Earth.
That is so cool.
It's like, hello, this is Agnes. Yeah, it's Butch. I'm up here in space. How you holding up? I'd come and visit if I could, but they won't let me. Our propulsion system has a leak. How cool is that?
That's really cool.
Not many people have that kind of commitment. I would have been like, hey, could somebody cover the call on the old people? It's this is me being crass.
I'm stuck above the planet, and I don't know when I'm going to get down.
But I mean, at the same time, Ron's right. You got a lot of time. It's like, hey, I got some time to kill here.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be here for 8 days. I don't know what's happening up here. We got the specs on the inline for the rotary girder. I checked the flux capacitor. I can make calls. How do you make a call?
I don't know.
Is there a phone up there where you're like beep boop 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 beep boop boop?
Well, now you can do Wi-Fi calling.
Yeah,
it's probably patched through NASA, where they radio. You would radio down to Mission Control, who would then patch you into the phone system.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the complexity of calling my grandmother when she was still with us. When you reach a certain age where you need one of those calls, it's like, it's more complicated.
Yeah, it could just be video calls. Like for them, they're using internet, but they're just calling their phone.
I'm just so impressed with him. He's been an active member of the body of the church. Now, had some powerful quotes about his experience.
Okay.
He said this: my feeling on all this, his being stuck in space for almost a year, goes back to my faith. It's bound in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He's working out his plan and his purposes for his glory throughout all of humanity. And how that plays into our lives is significant and important. And however that plays out, I am content because I understand that. I understand that he's at work in all things. Some things for the good, go to Hebrews chapter 11. Some things look to us to be not so good, but it's all working out for his good, for all those that will believe. And that's the answer. Whoa.
I like that.
You all know I'd be whining like a baby after 2 months.
They told me it would only be 10 days.
Can't you launch a spaceship? Talk to Elon. He's got a lot of them, No, but isn't that incredible? Like his mature faith in Christ, he continues committed while he's in space.
Mm-hmm.
That ought to, I think, in some measure, convict some of us. Like me, I'm raising my hand that
Right.
we're like, well, I'm busy. Are you?
Well, we've got gravity to contend with out here. He doesn't have that. That's my excuse.
Gravity, that's our excuse.
It'll get you, that gravity, As John Mayer once said, it's always trying to bring me down. It really is. Gravity. It's working against me.
Yeah, I get it.
So what happens to your body after you've been in space that long? You get bone and muscle loss.
Yeah.
Bones become 1% less dense for each month in space.
Wow.
So, like Dave Safransky talks about his sister, Fragile Mary. These people are going to be fragile. How about the immune system? You're separated from all of the various viruses that are on Earth.
Ooh, hadn't thought that.
So you're like, your immune system has been suppressed over time, so you're more vulnerable. Did you know astronauts grow in space?
I did know that.
I didn't.
Scott Kelly grew 2 inches.
Wow.
It's because the spinal column expands without gravity.
Mm.
Somebody else said that they grew about an inch, and Scott Kelly had the record of 2 inches. But I guess when you get back on Earth, your discs start to compress again. A lot of astronauts get back pain.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess there's vision issues because all the fluid in your eye is used to being like hanging out, in a certain spot, but you go up in space and it's all like, whoa. So your vision gets a little crazy. And then you get my very favorite. You get baby feet.
Baby feet?
What does that mean?
What?
I read that. I was like, do your feet shrink?
Do they get really soft because you're not walking?
They get really cute little baby feet. No, I don't know what that was.
Nobody does.
I have to watch this last year to figure it out. But yeah, no, so your feet are not supporting your weight anymore. And so you lose all your calluses on your feet. So you get, without a pedicure, you get soft little baby feet. Ladies are like, when can I go?
No.
You're not worried about that right now?
No.
You're a mom of 2 little boys. You've got sandpaper feet and you don't
I'm
care.
never going to heaven. I'm heaven. Space.
I hope.
I'm never going to space.
Once Sarah goes, are you wearing socks? We're in bed. And I'm like,
Ew.
I'm like, no.
Ew.
Oh, wow.
What am I supposed to get a pedicure?
Scratchy feet.
Am I supposed to get a pedicure?
Yes.
I'm a man.
I know men who get pedicures because they have scratchy feet.
You should still take care
Probably
of your feet.
millennials.
Yeah.
Scratchy feet.
Scratchier the better.
Oh,
Ew.
no.
No.
Oh, no.
Should I use one of those cheese graters on my feet? That
Yes.
you when I first got married, I didn't have any
How about just
sisters.
like a
I was
pumice stone?
What is this?
You don't have to
There's
use
a cheese grater in the shower.
You don't have to use the cheese grater. How about just like a pumice stone?
No, that hurts.
No, it doesn't.
Simultaneously.
We could do an experiment. You guys could rub that on the bottom of my feet during the
I'm
show.
not. I don't even want you to take your shoe off, let
Christians-
alone your sock.
The Christians wash each
Because I don't
other's
even
feet.
want to
No,
think
Jesus
about
washed
you
feet.
cutting your toenails because you probably don't.
I do occasionally. Now, hey,
Right.
you're
Sorry
you're
for
the
eating
leader.
breakfast.
Servant leadership, Lauren.
Doesn't
Wash
mean I
my
have
feet.
to cut your toenails.
Wash my feet.
Or do a pumice stone.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be maybe a new initiation into the Brethren Church or the Quakers or one of those that practice foot washing. Do a little pumice action while you're down there.
You'd have to get like an angle grinder or something, perhaps. But hey,
Oh my gosh.
Xers and Boomers unite. Yeah, man. We don't need
About
no
what?
soft feet.
No.
I think
foot
you
care.
guys are the one that needs to go to space.
That'd be great.
I don't know
Send
if it
them
would
away
make
for
much
9
of a
months.
difference. I'd have to be out there for a few years, probably.
For it to make them soft enough.
Yeah.
6:32. Time for a quick break. Our friends, the Ferrinis, come back here in just a minute to talk about, with their My Marriage Matters segment, that Cindi is, Joe drives her crazy, and she's still crazy about him.
Oh.
He probably has scratchy feet too.
Probably. He's a boomer.
That's probably why he drives her crazy.
We're not some millennial
Scratchy
man
feet.
worried about soft feet.
Yeah.
Your manhood is partially defined by your
No.
by your
Is not. No.
Sick.
Find out from Joe here in just a minute.
I'm Cindy Ferrini, and this is Pause for Prayer. Driving home and stopped at a light, a woman next to me lowered her window and said, "I think I'm lost. I need to get to the turnpike. Do you know how to get there?" I didn't know if she knew how far away she thought she was from the turnpike or how lost she was, but fortunately for her, that direction I could help her with, and I was headed that way. I told her, "It is a bit away from here, but follow me, and I'll point where you need to get onto the turnpike." I was able to lead her to the right place. Let's pause for prayer. Lord, as we look behind at our previous year and into the new year, we can recognize places where we lost our way, and perhaps you can help direct us in the way we should go. We know some people can lead us in the wrong direction, but then there's others who know how to get to you and point us to you in the right direction for life. To you. Like that woman's smile of relief as I caught a glimpse of her in my rearview mirror as I pointed to her exit and on to her destination is the kind of reaction we can all have when we come to know you and the direction you have for us. Let us not major on the minors and get off track and lead others to others than you. Let us tell of your redemptive work on the cross for us. And may we have the opportunity to follow you by leading them to you. We pray you would give us the right words as people ask us questions about our eternity. And may we be clear in our presentation of who you are and why you came. May we take each opportunity to share with others what we know about you and who you are to us in our lives, that we would be heading in the right direction, eternity with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You can share almost anything with a friend. A good laugh. A great meal.
Bon appétit.
But what about sharing a daily walk through Scripture with your friend? Today in the Word is Moody Bible Institute's daily devotional. It's perfect for sharing with a friend. One can read the Scripture passage, the other can read the devotional. But here's the thing, both of you will grow. Today in the Word. Sign up at todayintheword.org. That's todayintheword.org.
No matter your age or season of life, there's always something more to learn and skills to gain. Moody and Rich is Moody Bible Institute's new lifelong learning venue. The focus is on personal enrichment and professional development through video courses and e-courses starting at just $14.99. You'll gain a life-changing understanding of Scripture and expand your ministry and professional skills. Go to moody.edu/enrich, moody.edu/enrich.
4 out of 3 people struggle with math. Brian says that's 60% of the population. Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
sponsored studios, Christian counseling for adults, couples, children, and families, North Coast Family Foundation. It is 6:39 here on WCRF, and joining us now to talk about how you can still have your spouse drive you crazy, or wait, have them crazy about you, even if they drive you crazy, is our friends Joe and Cindi Ferrini. They spoke at Family Life's Weekend Remember Marriage Getaway for many years, and they've done My Marriage Matters here on the station for a long time as well. Welcome back, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You normally listen.
We like the.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we really liked the March Madness theme.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it is March Madness.
So we were like, I know you. I should have told you that ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm not a sports guy.
Yeah. So I thought it would be fun, I'm just mad about you.
Got it.
Now, just to get your comment from something earlier, you may have missed it. Ron and I were debating on whether or not men should worry about having soft baby feet and get pedicures. Joe, do you get pedicures all the time?
Not regularly, no, I don't. But I have found I grate her in the shower.
If
Actually,
someone, sorry, go ahead.
When we go to Florida, we all three, first thing the next day when we get back, the very next day we all go and get pedicures.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of the ways I serve my wife.
He didn't want you to share that, Cindi, I can tell. But
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
We're not taking away your man card, Joe. You can keep it. That's fine.
Okay, all right.
It's one of the reasons she's crazy about you, I'm sure.
Just one of them.
Well, it's one of the roles I play in this marriage, to build oneness.
So
Good job.
Set this up for us, Cindi. Supposedly he still drives you a little crazy sometimes, though.
Well, sometimes when we get on each other's nerves, which, it happens from time to time, I go, you drive me crazy, but I'm crazy about you. So I try to keep it light, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But honestly, I think it's just a matter of, one of the things really is how do we keep our love alive and vibrant? And, I just feel like it's an important topic, and we can revisit it from time to time. And one of the things we love to do, both of us like sports, and so whenever there is something really good on, like March Madness or like the World Series or the Super Bowl, we just really love watching it because the competition is really good usually. And so we just love being able to do it. So that's just one of the things we like to do. But I really feel like for many of us, we have to go from who am I when you're single or when you're early married and you're just kind of, navigating the marriage thing. You have to go from who am I to who are we, and find things that are going to keep your marriage fun together. And I think a lot of people, they don't want to do what the other person is doing. And it doesn't have to be everything, but it has to be something that you're really working on.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes to find that we thing because a lot of men are jealous hearing that Cindi loves watching sports because that's not common. So how do you find your thing together if you both like different things?
Well, for us, I think we've just had to say yes to a lot of different things and see what works,
Oh.
And I would just say one thing, when your kids are young, because your marriage is going to change. The things you enjoy doing are going to change, and probably should change because, right now I wouldn't want to be snow skiing at my age. It's just, some people are, but they've kept up with it. I haven't kept up with it, so I wouldn't want to be doing that. So you have to find things at different stages and ages of your marriage, and so when you're older, you want to settle into that season and see what you like, kind of like moving from the house to the condo. You downsize certain things at different times of life, and so we're at a time of life where we're kind of re-investigating, if you will, things that we both enjoy together.
I think it's really important to try to find that common ground where you both come to mutual agreement with one another. And it doesn't have you don't have to be 100% totally supportive, but you need to be at least,
interested
in what's going on. And I think gradually there's this transition into an agreement with what's happening. And I'm a very blessed guy because Cindi is a pretty amazing lady, as you know, and she's always forward thinking. and she's always thinking about the next fun thing to do. And so I just have to be geared up for that. That's just the way we live. And so I know something's coming. I just don't know what it is.
Sometimes he's in the loop, sometimes he's not.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have some kind of adventure, whatever that means to you. You know, when we don't have hope or we don't have something to look forward to, our lives can get really stale. And I'll just say that I do not want to be the couple who is sitting in a recliner watching television for the rest of my days. I'm not saying that watching television is wrong. It's just that's not what I want to do all the time. So I want to look for different adventures and explore them.
Yeah, you know, in one way, we look at time as being a good steward of what God has given us. You know, a lot of people talk about stewardship when it comes to finances, but that's just as critically important when it comes to time. And how are we going to invest this time so that we can together build a stronger marriage, fun marriage?
So what's your advice for somebody in a different phase of life than the two of you? So like you have Sarah and me where we're, you know, we have teenagers and one preteen, but then you've also got Lauren and Eddie who have the two babies basically. So how can they bring adventure and like common experience into their lives?
Well, I think for a younger couple, especially when
like
you have little kids.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
As you're bidding them all farewell one at a time, which it seems like only yesterday you came here to Ohio when they were little. It's just hard to believe. Yeah. The time does go by so fast. So I would just say, you know, one of the things we did when the kids were little, and we did this a lot of times in the summer, where we would just put things on the refrigerator that everybody wanted to do, like stick it on the refrigerator. And actually, when we're in Florida, we have a little, just like little teeny cards that are like, you know, maybe cut out of a 3x5 card or something, just small. And we'll put things on them like to do, like if somebody gets bored, like what are we going to do? So it might be like shopping or watch a movie or go bike riding or take a walk, or chat on the deck, or have a cup of coffee, watch the sunset. And that's something a young couple can do, but with their kids in mind. What do you want to do? Take a walk, go to the zoo. You know, what does your list look like? And have one so that when you are in a moment of, you know, wishing you had something to do, you could pick up a card, go through the little deck of cards that you have with ideas on it, or maybe a list on the refrigerator, and then just start checking them off. And one of the things I did was years ago when Joe first sold his practice, so he became semi-retired, I got a little, it was kind of a nice book, but a huge, huge binder. And I just started saving little like tickets of when we went to the zoo or to a movie and just threw them in this booklet. I don't have any reason to do that except that I know, because I do love to be busy and active, that I would say, if I didn't have those to look at, I know I would say we never do anything. Because your perspective when you don't have anything to do is that you don't do anything. And so
that's totally
I'm laughing
true.
here. I'm laughing.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. It's been our experience. Sarah and I were just talking about this last night. Yeah.
Yeah, so my book, you should see my book, how thick it is. So he's been, I don't even know how many years semi-retired, but so it's not like I have to put something in, but if I think of it, I'll save it and just stick it in. It takes a second. And sometimes I'll open up that book and I'll think, oh my goodness, we went to a show, we went to a movie at a movie theater, and I just see all the different things that we did. Took a walk in the park. And so I just, for me, I have to have something to look forward to. I guess it's just in my nature. But I also want something to look back to so that I'm not complaining that we don't ever do anything. And that is easy for me to do.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point, because I think a lot of people have that issue where if you aren't writing those things down, you'll forget you did them, and suddenly we never do anything. And your spouse is like, what about last week?
Yeah, exactly.
So, hey, it's
Exactly.
6:48. Time for a quick break. Our friends Joe and Cindi Ferrini with us from My Marriage Matters. When we come back, we'll continue chatting about this strategy they're discussing about how you can still be crazy about your spouse, even if they drive you a little crazy, by finding some adventure in life.
The Music of Praise and Worship channel can fill your spring days with lyrics that connect seasonal renewal to spiritual rebirth.
Walk on Jordan's ground.
As flowers bloom, these songs remind us that the same God who restores creation is working in our hearts.
My promise and is you.
The Praise and Worship channel online at praiseandworship.org or in the Moody Radio app, a ministry of Moody Radio.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network, so yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
6:50 with us, Joe and Cindi Ferrini, who spoke nationally for Family Life's Weekend to Remember Marriage Getaway for over 20 years. And Cindy's been doing Pause for Prayer since '98. Joe is a new Pause for Prayer contributor. And we've been doing this My Marriage Matters thing with them for quite a long time here on the station. We love it. You're talking about how to keep things alive and vibrant in a marriage relationship. And Cindi, you're talking about adventure and such and how much you love to plan ahead for that. What else can folks consider if they want to keep things vibrant and fun?
Well, I think you, in terms of planning ahead, for some things you're going to have to save money for it. So now that we're retired and we have a little bit of different free time, and we have our daughters who have generously offered to care for Joey, we are trying to do some trips. So once a year we're trying to take kind of a big trip if we can, but of course, you have to save for that. And when the kids were little, we just did things around Ohio. And we would maybe venture out a little bit to a state here or there if we had, something to do. But you have to save for that. You can't just, go and think, well, it'll be covered somehow, because you have to make sure you have the funds for it. And then really for Joe and I, planning together is enjoyable. Whether it's, like a couple of years ago, for his birthday, we decided to go through the Emerald Necklace and go to as many of the stops as we could. And we did most of it in one day, which was a lot, but it was really fun to do. And just the idea of anticipating, sometimes the anticipating can be more exciting than the going, actually, but it's still fun to plan together.
That's so true.
It's kind of like kids who plan like to go to prom or a homecoming dance or something, and then they go and they're like, well, it was more fun planning. It wasn't so fun to go. But you plan it, and there's so many things you can do, even just in our state. Like there's so many waterfalls, there's castles in our state, and they're not like the ones when you go to Europe, but they're still fun to go see. And so find a list of something that would be enjoyable to you and just start checking it off and making them times and weekends that you could get away, even for like a one day trip. And sometimes just finding that there's challenges along the way, and you're going to have to expect them, like bad weather. You might plan something and there's bad weather, so just table that and come back to it another time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that big time. There's so many even beautiful parks here in Ohio. Having lived in 2 other states, really there's nothing like it here. And for example, we live not far from Nelson's Ledges. And even if you don't like to hike, you don't have to be a professional hiker to go do some of these things and really enjoy them. I mean, it's gorgeous to take it in. You don't have to walk very far in there.
Exactly. And to take that a step further, to take a picnic lunch, or if it's not too far from your home and you can grab a cup of coffee at home and go sit, just take a couple of lawn chairs or something, open up the back of your if you have a van, open up the back of your van and just sit there, put a few snacks in the back, and just really enjoy sitting sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if you realize this, Brian, but Cindi has actually christened our van the Adventure Van. And and so she will literally lift that back hatch open so that we can sit there and have lunch together, a little picnic type thing. And it's just really fun to be. It doesn't matter where we're at. We can just have a picnic and just open up the back. And so she's prepared for that.
I love
and
it.
I think
It's great.
you know, one of the things we did when the kids were little, we haven't done it for a while, but we would go every year just before the school year, and we would go to where Joe grew up in Greater Cleveland, where I grew up in Parma, and then where we went to high school in Parma. We'd go past all of our houses, and then we would just have a conversation about, you know, working hard in school and being in different places and just, you know, enjoying. It didn't have to cost us anything to do that. If you go out to lunch, then you have a payment there. But just something that's, you know, you get out of the house and do something. And it could be as easy as saying, you know, let's just take a new route to church, or a new route to a friend's home, or trying a new church, or trying a new restaurant. There's a lot to be said about routine, but there's also a lot to be said about something new and adventure.
Yeah, you know, for Sarah and I, we were just, like I mentioned, we were talking about this just yesterday, how she said she really wants to set up something where we try some new things this summer, because it's so easy to get stuck in a routine. Routines are comfortable. They can help keep stress down. But then you know, you kind of look up and it's been 5 years and you haven't done anything except watch Netflix. So.
Well, and if you start that little booklet, then you'll realize you probably did more than you thought. I know for me, that has really changed my attitude, because I would complain. I know I would complain, like, how come we don't do anything? But then I also have to say, when you do a lot, if you do too much, you really have to have a minute for a routine.
Yeah.
And I don't care how old you are, because if you're schlepping kids around when you are young and have little ones, and you're trying to get them to the zoo and get them to all these fun things, when you come home you're tired, and you need to have that balance of rest versus, you know, keeping on the go.
Now, you also mentioned in your notes you sent me that you should do projects together. It sounds dangerous.
Well, it could be.
It could cause arguments.
Really could be. Well, you know, I would never want to do wallpaper with Joe.
Why is that?
Barely.
And neither would Joe want to do wallpaper.
Right, and I barely, and I'll add, I don't want to do wallpaper with me either. You know? So I think you have to look for projects that might be really fun. And I'm just going to throw out a few ideas just for listeners to think about and take it as like a place to move from. But what about finishing a piece of furniture, or making a small garden together, or, you know, doing cooking if there's something that you enjoy doing. I have a couple of friends that the husbands and wives love to cook together in the kitchen, and when they have company, they serve, they cook, they clean up together, and I love it. Personally, that's not something I want, and I don't really want Joe cooking in my kitchen. So
when I'm cooking, leave me alone. I need to focus.
Yes, right. Exactly. And you know where you need to move in your kitchen, and depending on the setup of your kitchen, it's not always convenient to have somebody else, you know, helping you.
They're always in the way. Yep.
They're always in the way. Yeah, when you need the stove, that's where they're standing. When you need the sink, that's where they're standing.
That's right.
So, so I think it's good to say yes to projects together, but maybe try them. You know, try something and see if you both like it. It could be, you know, taking a ballroom dance class, or an improv class or something. But, you know, if one doesn't like it or really would hate it, then drop that. Do something else. But if you don't experiment, you don't know.
Yeah, and eventually what happens is you begin to realize that you actually do have some shared goals and commitments with each other, and you start thinking down a certain pathway that we can do these things together. And I think that's one of the great thing that we have going for ourselves at this stage of our life, and that is we usually do like working together on things. But it wasn't always like that. It was something that we kind of develop a groove towards doing, and so, you know, being on the same page is really important at any stage of life. But you have to find out what that groove is on that record. Where you want to go.
Yeah, and I would say too, when you're retired, you have more time to experiment and see what different things you can do. When you have a bunch of little kids, or even like you, Brian, kids going in a lot of different directions with a lot of different activities. the time isn't the same, but we should still together in a marriage should be exploring different things so that when we get to where Joe and I are in retirement, we're not like looking at each other and saying like, who are you?
Yeah.
And I really think, to your point earlier, like what about little kids or, kids growing up? I think it's important to say yes to family, and it doesn't seem like it when you're young, like you're ever going to get to retirement, but when you do, and Lord willing, you have a couple of good years to really enjoy it, or many years to enjoy it, make time to be with the family, the kids and the grandkids. Last month when we were in Florida and our one daughter and her family came down, Christina, she said, Mom and Dad, would you guys want to do an escape room with us? And I have never done an escape room, but I was thinking about Joey, and just from what I've learned, I didn't know if it would be good. And I'm explaining, maybe Joey and I wouldn't. We would go and just kind of hang out and wait or something, but we wouldn't do it. And she goes, no, it's an escape room that's a game on paper. And so we had this game that was so much fun, and it was like a problem to solve, kind of like riddles that you had to solve. It took us all week to solve it. It was so much fun. And you couldn't do it with little kids because they wouldn't have the capacity to understand the riddles and the twists and turns of things. But for the big kids at 15 and 12, we had a blast.
Fun.
So invest in the kids.
Yeah. So fun. Any final thoughts for us as we wrap up our time together?
Make good use of the time that you have. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Don't waste it.
Yeah, life as you get older, you realize how quick time passes, and so as we allowed freedom to each other and encourage that and develop the spirit of adventure in our lives, it's really one of those wonderful things that you can look back and say, we did use our time wisely, and we are so thankful that we could do something together. Because as time goes on, the time goes by so quickly that you don't want to miss these opportunities to be together.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, tell folks how they can learn more and connect with My Marriage Matters, your ministry.
Well, on Facebook, we are at My Marriage Matters, and we also have a website where this will be posted, our audio of this topic of I'm Crazy About You, and that can be at joeferrini.com or cindyferrini.com.
All right. Thanks, you two. Always love spending time with you.
Thank you. We love spending time with you.
All right. It is 7:02. It's time for Ron's News and today's Moron Moment. And then when we come back, our friend Dr. Valencia Wiggins from Moody Bible Institute will help us think about how to choose a counselor. We talk a lot about getting counseling services, how important that is, how we all have done it. But how do you find a good counselor? She's got some great advice for us in a few minutes.
It's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studio. Whether it's your faith or your health, you don't have to journey alone. WCRF, Cleveland. WVMS, Sandusky. WVML, Millersburg. WVMN, Newcastle. WVME, Meadville. WVMU, Ashtabula. And with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Canada's new Prime Minister is calling for a snap election to help him deal with the U.S. trade war. It's 7:03. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Mark Carney was elected by the Liberal Party earlier this month to replace Justin Trudeau following his resignation. Carney called the election for April 28th, saying he needs a strong mandate to respond to Trump administration tariffs and the threat to the Canadian economy. It's 1 down and 2 to go for construction of 3 flood reduction detention basins along Big Creek Parkway in Middleburg Heights. Cleveland.com reports the permit required to enable site work to begin has been received from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And Dolly Parton's Imagination Library of Ohio is celebrating 20 million books mailed to children across Ohio. The program mails 1 free book per month until the child turns 5 years old. In sports, the Cavaliers crushed the Jazz 120-91, and the Penguins fell to the Panthers 4-3 in a shootout. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then mostly cloudy with a slight chance of showers this afternoon. It's going to be breezy with our high temperature in the upper 40s. At last check, cloudy and 40 degrees in Cleveland, 39 Akron and Canton, 39 in Worcester as well.
It's time for your moron moment.
The peril of dealing with ketchup that just won't come out of the bottle. It can seem like ages for a little ketchup to come out. So one big ketchup brand came up with a solution for this big problem. All you need is to turn the bottle to a 45-degree angle and tap the 57 logo. The ketchup will then come out easily. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It is 7:05. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
7:09. Welcome to another week. It's the Mornings with Brian team, all of us together. What a wonderful week it's going to be.
Very nice.
And you know what else makes it wonderful? Our dear friend, she is professor at Moody Bible Institute, associate professor in the clinical training and the clinical training director, at Moody Seminary and their Masters for Clinical Mental Health program. Joins us regularly, Dr. Valencia Wiggins. Welcome back.
Good morning. How are you all?
Doing fabulous, and I'm really excited about your topic. Our team is very passionate about encouraging Christians to get counseling care. And you know, for me, Dr. Wiggins, this has been a recent phenomena that Christians seem to embrace counseling. Has that been your experience?
You know what? It really has. It really has. When you think about how many people will encounter some type of emotional distress in their lives, people are going to need support. So I think it's really important to realize how you choose a counselor. I know we talk about it all the time. Seek counseling, but there's some things to consider that can help you in making the right choice for the counselor for your situation that you need.
Okay, so what's step one in choosing a counselor? How do you do that?
Step one would be just to research your insurance coverage, to make sure that you have behavioral health. Do you need a referral, like from your primary care physician? And then also I want to speak to also just if there's an access, like a barrier to getting mental health care. If someone doesn't have insurance, there are other avenues that can help. It's like a community mental health center. Sometimes they'll take it like at sliding fee scales. And even counselors who work, they will be willing to do sliding fee scales. I know some of my colleagues who at least have a spot or two for pro bono work as well.
Oh. Yeah, in fact, I remember the first time we sought this out in my family for one of my kids, I had in my head decided that counseling would be, like it was on TV, and not only would there be some awkwardly uncomfortable couch you lay on, but it would be hundreds of dollars an hour. Turns out it was, with insurance coverage, it was a $20 copay. And I was like, oh no, why have I avoided this my whole life?
Yeah, that's so important. And I think the other thing too is you can interview your counselor as well. You want to ask them, are they accepting new clients? What's your experience with my type of problem? Everybody's not an expertise in everything, so, and then also, do they have a particular approach to therapy that they use? What's their experience with clients from different, cultural backgrounds or religious backgrounds? Are they willing to work with you if you have as a Christian? Or so that's important to look at too.
And somebody might feel awkward interviewing a counselor. From a counselor's perspective, you being one, is that weird that somebody would ask you these questions?
You know what? I would hope that they would ask me those questions. Then that means that they're doing their research. It means that they're invested in this process. So that's really important as well too.
Now, you were alluding to the fact of talking to them about faith and their comfort level with that, and that ties to a pretty deep debate that Christians have. I've heard some people say Christians should only go to Christian counselors, otherwise it's dangerous. Others say it just depends. What's your take?
Well, you know what? I recommend, again, that's why it's important to interview a counselor. Some people do see counselors who are not Christians, but also they have to be willing to understand that their faith is important too. So all counselors have an ethical responsibility. There's a code of ethics for counselors. So you have to provide the best care to that counselor. And so say if you did see a counselor who was not a Christian and maybe they couldn't address the faith issues that you might be struggling with, they should refer, to someone that does have that expertise in that area.
But correct me if I'm wrong, a licensed counselor is not in the business, if they're a professional and ethical, of trying to convince you to stop being a Christian.
No, they're not. Ask that question one more time, Brian.
Well, I think people's greatest fear, I'll ask it a different way, is that they're going to go to a secular counselor, and that secular counselor is going to trick them into not following Jesus anymore, and that they're going to try to get them to stop being a Christian. Ethically, how would that work for a secular counselor?
Ethically, ethically, they should not be doing that. Changing someone's belief system is not ethical because you're there to deal with the problems that are occurring in your life. So if your faith is important to you, I wouldn't try to talk you out of that. I myself have even worked with clients of a different faith who are Muslim, and they've come to a Christian-based site to receive help, but I'm there to help them with their issues, even if their faith is different from mine.
And so what happens when they bring up how their faith is influencing their decisions? Do you say something like, boy, I know a better God than that, or something?
No, because I can't be putting my beliefs of my client if they're different than mine in the session. But I listen and understand, well, how does that work for you? But now, unless they ask me something about my faith, I could talk about it, but that's not the purpose of the counseling.
Yeah, and of course there are unethical mechanics, there's unethical counselors, unethical doctors, and radio hosts and things like that. So those exist, but I bring that up for a specific reason because I think we're in an era where so many people are looking for counseling, and there's a limited number of Christian counselors available. And so I get worried that somebody will go, I can only see a Christian counselor, I can't find one. Therefore, well, never mind then. I guess I'm not getting counseling now.
Yeah, and then I think the best way really to find a counselor would be also networking. Who do you know? So, or if you're looking at a counselor and I say, does someone know this person? I mean, you can look at somebody's profile on their website to see, their background, if they're licensed. So those are important things, again, to research as well.
Can you help us understand some of the letters and the suffix of a counselor's name? Because I think the general population doesn't know what those are, but that might help.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a licensed professional counselor, like an LPC. Then there's a licensed clinical professional counselor. Again, these are people who have gone through training, they've gotten their degree, and they've taken the state licensure test, which, like, for example, our students are preparing for now. It's called the National Counselor Exam. So they've gone through that exam. Then there's psychologists who are also licensed. They're LPCs. They're licensed in their state. And then there's licensed clinical social workers who also have received, again, extensive educational training and taking licensure exams. The exams that states provide for counseling are very rigorous. So that's something that's important as well. And that's why you want a licensed mental health professional who's had educational training and licensed.
Now, the licensed clinical social worker, somebody might go, social worker? Why would a social worker counsel me?
Well, you know what? They do counseling. A lot of them think about social workers as case management, like, say, in a hospital or school. But there are clinical social workers who do counseling. And they're pretty good. I know a few.
Yeah. And this is why it's so good that we're talking about this. I mean, my wife and I even looked for, when we were looking for a marriage counselor, the suffix MFT. Can you talk about that one?
Right, absolutely. So marriage and family therapists, there's also a license for, and you want an LMFT. That's a licensed marriage family. They've been specifically trained in marriage and family. Actually, I have one of my cousins. She just got her master's in an MFT.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I had to actually go look up what those mean so I could figure it out because it's so important to know what those mean. Now, there's also some Christian ministries where they may not be licensed, but people have advanced degrees in things like this. What kind of advanced degrees we look for?
You want someone with a master's level, or you want someone with a PhD, a doctorate level, and there are, sometimes in churches they're called lay counselors, so they don't necessarily have the training as much as a licensed mental health professional, but they can be a support or a peer support. I think about like group therapy. Like I run a grief share support group in my church. You don't have to be a license, but you can be trained in that. So even though I run it, I have some lay counselors on my ministry team, and so they're learning how to facilitate a group like Grief Share.
So can you share more about your thoughts as a licensed counselor yourself on lay counselors? What do we need to look for, and how do you feel about them?
I think lay counselors in a church, they have to be under someone who's licensed. I think that's important. There's some great curriculum training in churches. I've seen it's called the Stevens Ministry, and they walk you through what is counseling. Actually, my team right now, I have them reading a book on lay counseling by a Christian psychologist. So just understanding listening is important. You're not diagnosing, but knowing when maybe you need to refer that one to a professional licensed counselor is beyond what you can provide for them.
Why do you think it's important that they be supervised, so to speak, these lay counselors, by a licensed counselor?
You know what? There are so many things that can happen. So say you have a person that's suicidal. You don't want to be responsible if something's happened if they didn't get the right care that they needed. So that's where you would say, you know what, I'm going to get you to a licensed professional. And that's, as a lay counselor, that's also providing care because you're helping them find what more they need.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you took the time to talk about that because it's such a powerful ministry when done well. But I've heard of lay counseling done so poorly, it becomes destructive.
Yes, that can happen. But, one of the new trends that I'm seeing is also churches that may be providing outsourced care. So they're actually bringing, say, a Christian private practice to their church. And again, that makes the care more accessible and affordable.
Very good. This has been super helpful information from our friend Dr. Valencia Wiggins, Associate Professor and Clinical Training Director at Moody Seminary for their Master's in Clinical Mental Health program. It's one of those things you can do at Moody Bible Institute is study counseling and take your licensure test, it sounds like. So again, if folks want more information, best place to go, moody.edu. Again, moody.edu. Thanks again, Dr. Wiggins. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Blessings.
You too. 722 WCRF.
You can finish your bachelor's degree no matter where you started it. When you earn your Bachelor of Science in Integrated Ministry Studies from Moody Bible Institute, you'll learn to integrate the Bible into whatever field you're in now or choose to pursue after graduation. Transfer up to 90 credits into this full online, flexible, customizable program that will allow you to finish any bachelor's degree and strengthen your ministry skills. Get started today at moody.edu/integrated. That's moody.edu/integrated.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt and I couldn't pay my bills. I was feeling so bad. I got to a point where I needed some help. So I reached out and contacted Trinity.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838 to talk to a certified counselor.
They were able to take all of my different payments and put them all together.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
And they were actually able to work with my creditors. I've been able to pay off close to $15,000 in the last 18 months.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm debt-free for keeps.
1-800-659-9838.
Are you looking for candid conversation from a biblical perspective? You found it. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
723 WCRF Mornings with Brian. I couldn't resist the chance to bring up something our friends Joe and Cindi Ferrini brought up a few minutes ago. They talked about ways to kind of keep the fun alive in your relationship over the years. And one of them that they suggested is doing projects together.
Mm-hmm.
Like around the house, or around the yard, whatever that might be. Let's start with Lauren. I want to hear how that goes for you guys because I have my own complexities on that with Sarah. And if she were listening, she'd go, oh, yeah. Do you and Eddie do projects together?
Not so much right now. Just with our phase of life, someone has to watch the children so the children don't stick their fingers like in drills or something. But before kids, yes, we would have done projects together.
Like a lot?
I mean, if like, you get something from IKEA or something, yeah, we're both going to be there trying to figure out how to put it together.
How does it go when you two do projects together?
I like to oversee the task. I'd like to try to start, like get in there and do it myself, but then almost always I'm going to do something wrong and have to like go back, like undo it and then do it again.
How does Eddie feel about that?
You're
being so careful.
I'm trying to think. Trying to think back. He will have already watched 14 YouTube videos on how to do it.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like, I don't really need you here. I've got my YouTube video that told me how to do it. And he, in all aspects of our life, gets frustrated at me trying to do things too fast. So me just running through trying to build a table from IKEA will frustrate him because I just tried to do it too fast, and then we end up having to like go back and do something over.
It reminds me of, we have a shelf in the studio, kind of, if you watch a live stream, it's just right here. Our friend Kathleen, we got this for the studio, and she's just like you. She couldn't be bothered with directions, nor could she be bothered with taking her time.
No, I bother with directions.
You do?
Oh, yes. I
You just go too fast.
Yeah, I just go too fast.
Okay, so you're not being cautious that you're following the direction accurately.
I'm following directions.
Does the project still get done though?
Yes.
So why is he complaining?
I don't know.
You're just going faster. Is he jealous?
Maybe just because I cut corners that he wouldn't have liked to cut. And in my mind, I'm like, that doesn't matter. You can't see it on the table or the shelf, or it's not.
He wants to know that the back of it or whatever you're not seeing also looks good, just in case he wanted to look at the back.
That's right. And to me, the back is not my problem. So
it's not like there's leftover hardware at the end of the project.
Right.
There was leftover hardware on this shelf.
Yeah, no, there's no leftover hardware.
It's still standing.
Exactly.
It had to be taken apart and then put back together.
I'm just like, for me, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect as long as it's functional.
Right.
Or for my husband, it needs to be 100% perfect. So he would get frustrated with me for cutting corners.
So that sounds like a recipe for, we don't do projects together very often because we're so different.
Yeah, he probably would get frustrated with me. I don't get frustrated. I'm just like, whatever. But he gets frustrated with me.
And it's not that either of you are doing it right or wrong, which is where a lot of couples get tripped up.
Yeah, Eddie would say I'm doing it wrong. Because I'm cutting corners. Or I'm going too fast.
This is why you don't do many projects together.
Yeah, because then he's got to take over and start doing it, and I just like stand there and I'll try to like, oh, well, what about like you do it like this? And he's like, I don't need you to do that.
Just to make suggestions that are not part of this YouTube video?
Right.
Yeah. Ron, do you and Dana do projects together?
From time to time, it tends to be something that involves moving something heavy. So that's why it's the together part. She can hang, light paintings or something on the wall. When it gets heavier and she's worried that it's going to need to be put into a stud or have a more secure bracket, I get called in. She's had her eyes on the room that I call my office for a long time. And so we're making headway finally toward that.
But you're not, let's build this together. Let's take this apart together. Doesn't sound like you're doing that.
No.
Why?
Our skill sets are different. She's got no interest in me running a table saw. She would prefer I not run my thumb in it. But yeah, she'll show me a picture. I think she's got on Pinterest or whatever some
do this.
whole board of Ron's projects.
So in her free time, she creates projects for you.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. Daria, what about you and Jimmy? Do you do projects together? How does it go?
Not really. I mean, we both, it's kind of a chore. So we just bought a house a little less than a year ago. Took us a while to get the main area of the living room and the dining room painted. That took us way longer than it should have, and we still have not gotten around to painting our bedroom. Every once in a while, I'm like, we should do that. It's not something we enjoy doing. It's just, we both find it stressful, and also for most things, with the exception being painting, I will say I'm better at painting than Jimmy is. But for everything else, he is so much better than me at that stuff. It's not even worth it for me to chip in.
Oh, that's so sweet. We've struggled over the years with we're doing projects together, and we've always, well, for most of our relationship, we lived far away from family. And when you have a few years, we don't have close enough friends to call for help. So we've had to do stuff together, and we've had to work hard. It's a couple of things. One of them is the communication. Like, I'm a slow processor, and I communicate in a particular way, and my wife processes really fast and communicates in a very different way than I do. So we'll be like carrying a couch, for example, that I can't possibly fathom it's going to fit in this door.
Yeah.
And she'll say, just turn your end. Turn your end. What?
Which
Turn
direction?
It. Just turn it.
Pivot.
Just turn it.
Pivot.
She turns into Ross yelling pivot. And I'm at the other end going, I don't know what you're saying. And I know in my mind, she's right. She can see how to get it in there. She's proven over time.
But she's not telling you how to do it.
And so over the years, I'd go, okay, remember, use your words. You've got to use your words.
Yeah.
I'm over here holding this thing. I don't know what's happening.
Turn your end.
And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And in her mind, she knows exactly how it needs to turn to get in there.
Yeah. Jimmy's also fantastic with spatial awareness. Like, he can pack a car like a champ. I'm not good with that kind of stuff.
I'm just vibes. Throw it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It'll fit.
Yeah. And then she also tends to like to do 16 things at once. I can only do one. And so if we work together, I'll be like, okay, just hold on 1 second. I'm going to do this. Don't go anywhere. And I boop, boop, boop. She's gone. She's gone. And I have to
She's
look
got something
for
else
her.
to do.
Like, I have to actually, hello, Sarah. She's like down the street. Well, I was doing something quick. I thought you were fine. So, and my spatial ability is terrible. But we've ended up, we do a lot better dividing up tasks. Like, we had our bathroom floor the toilet was set wrong. Let's put it there by somebody else before we owned it. I had to cut out the entire floor, and we had to replace the subfloor and do all this stuff. So don't help me on that. It's gross. It's horrible. I did all that. But she actually is really good with things like tiling. And so we were different contractors. We did it together, but she didn't want my help tiling. She'd
Together
be like,
but separate.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to close the door, and you're not going to bother me while I tile. Okay. So we found better success in doing projects like that.
Yeah, my husband fixed some, just aesthetic cracks in the ceiling of our bathroom.
Oh.
And he's, doing his thing, and they repainted it. So he's, what's that called? With the stuff.
Spackling?
Yeah, thank you. And he's doing all that. And I'm just like, hey, just let me know if you need anything. So I'm like going down to the basement, bringing stuff back up, doing like little tasks.
And he's like, Lauren, could you get me the...
Yeah, can you give me the different type of paintbrush or some more whatever for this? Sure.
Are you watching thinking, why is he doing it that way?
No.
You're not processing that at all. You're just letting
No.
it happen.
Yes, because I don't think about the project unless I have to do it. So I'm just like, oh, that looks nice.
Your brain is still a mystery to me.
If I had to do it, then I would have thought all the way how to do it, but I'm not, so I just didn't think about it.
I'm not close enough is good enough for a type of person for a lot of things. And that drives Jimmy crazy. He's like, it has to be perfect. I'm like, no one's going to notice. Like, we just had a conversation yesterday. There's like a slight streak in the paint on the baseboard. He's like, we have to sand that and redo that. I'm like, no, we don't.
No, it's literally fine.
No
It's a
one's looking
baseboard.
at that except for you.
I think every couple has that combination. One person really cares about the details. The other would just prefer it be done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you and Dana have that?
Yeah. I'm definitely function over form, and she's the opposite. It's got to look good. No, if it's a shelf
get it
on the
done.
wall, it's just got to hold something
That's
up.
exactly right.
Every couple has that combo. And really, I think the only way to resolve that is to try to do it as best you can. So the other person's not driven crazy looking around the whole house.
Yeah.
Right? You've had to lean towards perfection?
Yeah. I definitely will like get out a level, and I try to, hang the pictures even and get the shelf level, things like that. But I don't worry about is the bracket going to be gold finished or black or white or mauve or something.
Mauve.
Maybe chartreuse. All right.
Periwinkle.
Ooh.
It's been a fun conversation. I love hearing how other couples work. We all have our own complexities, but you got to find that way to understand each other well enough to actually work together. It's 7:34. We're up against a break. When we come back, a listener reached out to us, and they need help on something, and they also want us to help communicate something to you.
A lot less, but people are actually happier with it. That sounds like something to look into. and that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network, so yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
There's joy in the journey. It's Mornings with Brian from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studio. Good morning from Moody Radio Cleveland. Our whole team is together, and we had somebody write a heartfelt note to us asking us to discuss something on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that we're in that unique position. I've heard pastors say this as well. There's certain things we can talk about that they can't.
Right.
And that makes me smile. It makes you smile too, Ron. I can see it.
And I feel good that we can provide a service for them.
Yes.
Because we can take the heat, and it's not any, skin off our nose, I guess.
Yeah. Or back, or wherever you're supposed to take that skin off. I don't remember. Okay, so the complexity is this person shared with us a very detailed, terrible story, but we can't share the details of it, or everybody will know who she is, basically, is what her concern was. I don't think that's necessarily true, but okay, so here's what I can share with you. She wrote to us shocked, convicted, and concerned by the behavior of people in general and Christians specifically. So she's connected to a place that's being sued and has gotten some public and media attention on this, and social media, some viral posts and such about this organization that's been sued. And she's an insider. So she works at the place being sued. And she knows the whole story. This is the first time she's been in a situation like this where somewhere she has all the information is being covered by social media and people in the community. Okay? And as you can imagine, they're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Because they don't have all the information. And she said that folks are jumping to terrible conclusions about her organization. And then they're calling and writing and saying some of the most horrible things she's ever heard in her entire life. Like threats.
Right.
And she's having to field some of these, and it's caused her to kind of start spinning. Because again, some of these people that are perpetuating the rumors, not having all the information, are Christians. And the Christians think they're like kind of, have some sort of righteous indignation without all the information.
Right. Based on what they know, they probably do have righteous indignation, but they're righteously ignorant.
Yeah. So the part we can share is she writes this. It's opened my eyes to how easy it is to believe what we see on social media and to take sides without even knowing all the facts. This is where you come in. If you can find a way to address the problem of buying into social media posts and discussing what our Christian response should be, without giving the specifics referenced above, that would be great. I would hope that Christians are smarter than this. But even I have had to check my own heart about making judgments about something I saw online, although that's as far as it goes. I'm not posting negative comments online or making threats, but still, I see how easy it is to have those negative thoughts. So perhaps the topic will help someone else.
Yes.
So what's our initial response to her dilemma?
The verse, I wish I could remember the reference. Be quick to listen, slow to get angry, slow to speak. That comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in general, Christians are really bad at that.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's something about the era in which we live that all of us have a significant dose of false confidence about what we know.
Well, I think the internet boosts false confidence. Because if I say something to your face, Brian, that is like blatantly false, you can correct me and then I look like a fool. But we're hiding behind keyboards. We don't have to have that face-to-face interaction of being called out and being wrong.
Yeah. And so many rumors turn into, well, it must be facts because it's written down. And in the olden days, Walter Cronkite said it and I believed it,
Right. In the olden days, you could trust those guys. They were truly editors. They were very concerned that you had, you who brought the story had double-checked it and verified it with a number of sources so that when a junior reporter brought it up to Walter, it was vetted and known to be true. We have less and less of that today as, we're cutting away the budget of news agencies as evidenced by the plain dealer going from being 2 inches thick to being a 1/4 inch thick or whatever. And news agencies are the same, television and radio.
Well, and we've also gone to the point where people are like, those mainstream media people, they may have editors, but they're all conspiring to change our minds and hurt us.
Yeah.
So you know what I believe? That guy that randomly posted on social media who says he heard something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also because attention spans are so much shorter and just the way we consume news, there's so much of it. There's so much to consume. We tend to just read the headlines. And 90% of the time, you are not getting the full story. You're missing important details when you consume like that.
Right. The headlines are not written by the author of the article. They're written by another editor and designed to basically be bait to draw you in.
Correct.
So now you have a follower of Jesus. She loves the Lord, listens to the show, and works for an organization that's being sued. And not everybody that gets sued has done something wrong, by the way.
True.
I could sue you right now, Ron, if I wanted to.
Bring it on.
I'd lose. But you know what I mean? Like people presume, oh, they're being sued. They must have done something wrong. Well,
Right.
not necessarily. And the community's buying into lies. Now, keep in mind, depending on who you work for, you can't just be like, hey, guys, sorry, that's all wrong. Here's what really happened. For legal reasons and confidentiality reasons,
Yes.
sometimes you can't share those things.
And even the information you can share, it's hard to get it out as fast as the disinformation is spread.
And like if you work in medicine or I don't know, education or whatever it is, there's even in corporations, there's information you can't because of human resources laws,
right,
and confidentiality issues. And she's beside herself. She can't even believe it. Who are these people who are believing all these lies? Us.
Yeah, typical humans.
And I think she's concerned about a problem that is much larger than any of us realize. I mean, if it's happening on a local level, to what extent is this endemic, you know? And how are we as Christians to process through that? And I want to spend a little bit more time doing that as we try to figure out how do we respond when accusations are made and information is shared online for which we don't have any firsthand knowledge. You can join us, 440-546-2255.
From Moody Publishers, a book designed to grow your faith, to really authentically grow your faith. In Fake Christianity, Jed Coppinger exposes the hidden traps of hypocrisy, prayerlessness, neglecting the Bible, gossip, and bitterness. Then, with a pastoral heart, Coppinger takes you through the teachings of Jesus, showing how to overcome inauthenticity and grow in true discipleship. Is it time to finally get serious about following Jesus? Fake Christianity is available right now at moodybooks.org.
Today, there is a disciple-making church planting movement that's taken root in 40 countries around the world. It's called the Timothy Initiative, and its mission is to see a healthy church planted in every village, everywhere. Since 2007, over 200,000 churches have been planted through the work of the Timothy Initiative, but there's more work to be done. Take your place in the Timothy Initiative. Go to ttiglobal.org.
No matter your age or season of life, there's always something more to learn and skills to gain. Moody and Rich is Moody Bible Institute's new lifelong learning venue. The focus is on personal enrichment and professional development through video courses and e-courses starting at just $14.99. You'll gain a life-changing understanding of Scripture and expand your ministry and professional skills. Go to moody.edu/enrich, moody.edu/enrich.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
751 WCRF, we're people who certainly believe in objective truth. We believe in the truth of the scriptures, the truth in who Jesus is. And as people of truth, we ought to be, people of truth. And it gets a little disorienting this day and age when truth has become more and more elusive. It's not just that I think moral relativism is a thing. For those who don't know, it's just the idea that truth is whatever you want it to be. Like your truth, my truth, and all that. Christians get worried about that, sure, fine. But I think people also have created these scenarios of what they've decided is true because of what sources they trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a relative nature to that is pretty scary. Now, I bring that up because somebody asked us to talk about this. Like, how should Christians respond when things are posted online? Very short version of the story. She works at an organization being sued. Her entire community doesn't have the whole story. And they've gone apoplectic and made horrible accusations and threats. And she's just totally disoriented. Like, who are these people? How can they do this? And then she kind of goes, oh, wait, I've done this when I read things online. So we know that social media is filled with misinformation. Reporters will even tell you, here's what we know, and it's incomplete.
Yeah.
How do we, as Christians, navigate this stuff?
I'm just not certain why we're calling and emailing places when we're like not a part of it and saying mean and horrible things.
Right.
Like if you're not a part of the situation, why are you calling an organization? Because what they seem to have done, what you think that they have done, you're mad about.
Well, yeah, it's outrageous, that thing. And they need to know, Lauren. I'm a Christian, and what they're doing is wicked.
They're being sued if they know that someone thinks that what they did was wrong, whether it was illegal or not, or whether it was true or not. If you're not a part of it, I'm just like not certain why you need to be calling and emailing places. I don't know.
Right. Not only is it questionable, it's wrong. If what you're doing is attacking them. If you're writing to ask for more information, you can do that. They may not be able to give it to you. If you're writing to say, I understand you're under pressure, I'll be praying for you. If it's that type of an organization, you could write to Meta or Amazon or something. I'm praying for you in your court case. They may not care that you're praying for them. But so often we fail to try to think critically and to, as our Native American friends would say, walk a mile in another man's moccasins and see what could be the possible situation.
So what's the better course of action for this person you're talking about, Lauren? They've heard some information about what's happening. There's a lawsuit. It's terrible. Saw it on social media. It's in their community. This could be terrible if it's true. I want to call them and tell them what's up. What should they do instead?
There are actually multiple Bible verses about minding your own business. I pulled up some of them. 1 Thessalonians 4:11, and to aspire to live quietly and mind your own affairs and work with your hands as we instructed you. Proverbs 26:17, whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears.
And also we're called to be peacemakers, not people who go and yell at other people about stuff.
Amen.
And say unkind things. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. The Bible doesn't say you can go be mean to someone if what they did was wicked and true.
Yeah, we feel like it says that.
Yeah.
What does it actually say?
To be peacemakers.
And love your enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do wish it said, if that guy was evil, go get him. Grab your pitchfork, nudge your neighbor, have him grab a torch, let's get him. That's not how the Christian faith works. And yet, boy, okay, I've done this. Even in, like, she talks about, she's never posted stuff, but in her own heart.
Oh, sure.
Which is the right way to examine yourself.
Right.
You hear a story, you go, well, that's outrageous. How could they put up with that? How could they allow that to happen? These idiots.
We run into that even here. You may bring up some survey, and the survey says, Gen Z are doing crazy things and the boomers are all upset about it. And then we start to delve into it, go, well, what was the exact wording of the question?
Mm-hmm.
And who did they who did they interview about this?
And those things matter.
Right. And so, we kind of tear apart the survey by asking the questions.
There's also consequences for sin, and those consequences are generally not ours to dole out. Sometimes those consequences are what we would call natural consequences, and it comes out through the court system. Sometimes people seem to, quote unquote, get away with it, but God will deal with them.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like the only solution then to this listener's dilemma is that all of us need to care a little less about what we see happening around us on social media and in the news?
I think you can care. I just don't think caring means you have to go get involved in it by calling or emailing.
But even like drawing a conclusion.
You can't. You don't have the full information.
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with drawing conclusions, because when you have facts presented to you, it's really hard to discern whether these are all the facts or not. I think it's what you do with the conclusion you draw that then becomes a problem.
Okay, so then what do we do with that conclusion? If you go, boy, this sure sounds bad. If what they're telling me is true, this is not good.
I think you should leave it at that. Wow, that's awful. I'll have to, I have opinions now, but I'm going to have to wait and see how things play out.
I say it to my son all the time. You can be mad, but you can't be mean. You can be mad. It's okay to be mad, but it doesn't give you a right to be mean about it.
But in some sense, what Daria's saying, though, is you need to kind of let go.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. That's not how social media works. That's not how life works. Nobody's doing this. Is this how we're supposed to be different?
I think so.
It seems as if it's something that nobody cares about. Now, I know it's melodramatic because that's me, but I don't know that I've seen many Christians, me included, who are not getting all up in the business and talking about all the things happening and drawing dramatic conclusions and getting mad.
That's because the people that are doing that you're not seeing them. So you're right. You're not seeing the Christians who are acting like Christians. You're seeing
the other ones
outraged.
Are very loud.
Yeah.
I am increasingly wondering at what level ought we as believers to even engage in social media that does those kind of things. Like I've heard of people who are like, I'm just going over to Instagram because it's way less angry over there. Is it though? I mean, I don't know. I don't.
It depends on.
Yeah, it depends on the pages.
It really depends. To an extent, yes, but also people are still people, and the internet is still going to internet.
So it sounds like an excuse, but I wonder if we should just care more about the issues right in front of us that we know everything about, and not worry as much about everything else. It sounds odd, but
you can study it, research or whatever, but don't trumpet half-baked opinions.
So don't ever post on social media. I mean, it's amazing. I look at this thing. I've tried to follow lots of different types of people, and this is just like it's what lots of people do. I've read this article, therefore I understand this clearly, and everyone who disagrees is a total idiot. And now here's a dramatic post about that. Mm-hmm. And that goes against what we've just been talking about. We should be more concerned, though, it seems to me, with the things of the Lord and the things immediately in front of us in our own lives that we are privy to.
Yep.
And then in all other things, be as much of a peacemaker as possible. That doesn't sound very salacious, though. Doesn't sound very...
We're not supposed to be salacious.
Where do you find that in the Bible?
Well, I'm not saying it's in there. I'm just saying it sounds boring compared to what's happening now.
I think we could all use a bit more boring in our lives.
Yeah, it's like...
Be okay with boring.
Bring the heart rate down a little.
Walk humbly with your God.
And, here's the other challenging part. When you talk about just at least the business we're in radio, I've talked to many people who've worked in both secular and Christian radio. And when you encounter them, they're horrified by what they find in Christian radio. Because in secular radio, people are way nicer in their emails, their letters, and their calls. They can't believe the behavior of Christians towards each other in Christian media. I mean, it's shocking to them. Some of them leave Christian media because it's a lot less traumatizing to just work in secular radio. What do we make of that? Why is it like that?
I wish I knew.
I think Christians are very preoccupied with their worldview, and they think that their worldview is the only worldview and that other people should adopt it, and they feel very passionately about that.
Yeah, we need a course correction, I think, for followers of Christ, and more so than in years past because of the era in which we live. You know, we have always talked about how kids have never faced what kids today face. So true. What, I guess we're not facing anything as grown-ups? Like, we forget about that. We need a major course correction as followers of Christ. We should be sticking out like a sore thumb in society. People almost annoyed at how much we are making peace and loving one another and other people. And yet the opposite appears to be true. Maybe we'll play a part in that course correction. Maybe not. We've got another comment from a listener we want to cover, and perhaps we'll go back to this one on Friday for Follow-Up Friday. But for now, we have to get to Ron's news.
It's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studio. Whether it's your faith or your health, you don't have to journey alone. WCRF, Cleveland. WVMS, Sandusky. WVML, Millersburg. WVMN, Newcastle. WVME, Meadville. WVMU, Ashtabula. And with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East says negotiators are making progress toward a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. It's 8:03. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Steve Witkoff told Fox News Sunday that the two sides will be negotiating towards a ceasefire in the naval war on the Black Sea. He went on to say that from there, a full ceasefire should be coming soon. Officials at The Ohio State University are planning to begin deleting alumni email accounts soon. OSU leaders previously announced that they were ending the Buckeye Mail for Life service this spring. Accounts belonging to anyone who is not an active student or who did not graduate within the last 2 years are being shut down starting April 1st. And the plan to build a highway interchange off I-71 on the border of Brunswick and Strongsville has been put on hold. Scene magazine reports House Bill 54 repealed the budget language of last year, which would have mandated a new I-71 interchange at Boston Road, one that would have required the demolishing of dozens of nearby homes via eminent domain and disrupting the normalcy of hundreds of others. In sports, the Cavs crushed the Jazz 120-91, and the Penguins fell to the Panthers 4-3 in a shootout. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then mostly cloudy with a slight chance of showers this afternoon. It's going to be breezy with high temperatures in the upper 40s. At last check, we had mostly cloudy skies in the Cleveland area and 41 degrees. Akron and Canton, 38 degrees. Ashtabula, 42.
It's time for your moron moment.
Ah, the peril of dealing with ketchup that just won't come out of the bottle. It can seem like ages for a little ketchup to come out. So, one big brand came up with a solution for this big problem. All you need to do is turn the bottle to a 45-degree angle and tap the 57 logo. The ketchup will come out easily. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It is 8:05 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Amen. 809 WCRF. It's the whole team this week. I'm excited about that. It's been a few weeks since we've had 5 days together. Just the way life works, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody's always doing something. I'll be out in a few weeks, and
Yeah.
Lord willing, I'll be out. But
I will not be here next week. I will be around, but I'm not on the show.
oh, that's right.
Yes. We've got some important updates coming that are going to require a lot of my time, so you're not going to hear from me next week. So stay tuned for those.
But
She's out next week, and then the week after that, you're gone.
Yeah, my oldest daughter graduates from basic training. And so we're going to go and see her turning green ceremony.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's all the things
It
you got to
happened
do.
very fast, it feels like.
Yeah, she feels that way too.
I feel like this year has like just flown by. Does anybody else feel like
Yes.
that?
Totally.
Like, how is it almost April already? Yeah. Christmas was yesterday.
Yeah, I was thinking about yesterday. I was like, oh, yeah, Brian's going to be out in a couple weeks for this. And I was like, oh, my gosh, wait. It's already time?
Yeah, it's 17 days until we go. And she left in late January.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long time, but it just doesn't feel like
No.
that. She's doing, for those wondering, she's doing super well. She loves it. She was homesick for a little bit, but I think
Aw.
she's just found her thing.
That's great.
Which, as a dad, that just warms my heart, you know?
Right.
And Lord willing, we'll be going to Georgia to figure this whole thing out. Never been on a military base. Have you guys been?
Figure this whole thing out. What do you have to figure out?
Like, there's a whole, like, you can't just be like, hi, military, here I am. My daughter's in there, I swear. I'm going to come in here. Like, there's a whole process you have to go through to get in, to get your pass to get in, to do all the things and this and that. And you wait in this line, you wait for that line, you get your parking permit. You go to this center, you go to that center. It's at this place, that place.
Yeah, that kind of stuff really stresses you out.
You know, they've done this before, and they're used to parents showing up
You're
who
not
have no
the
clue what they're doing.
parents.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, but okay, Mrs., I'm going to go wing it.
Yes.
I'm not a wing it type of person. I just know when things are going to fall into place.
Well, right, but you can't just show up having never been to a military base or having experienced this before and take the chance that oh, sorry, I missed your turning green ceremony. I didn't do any research and couldn't figure out how to get in. And the line can be over an hour long. And if you just wake up sipping your coffee and go too late, you're not going to get in. You're going to miss it.
I'm sure your daughter will be able to get you the information you need to get in.
No, that's not how it works. I'll talk to her a week before that. She doesn't know. They don't tell her anything. She hadn't heard the egg prices have been so high.
Wow.
We were making a joke on the phone last night about eggs, and she's like, What are you talking about? We're like, egg prices. She goes, well, how much are they? And we told her, and she's like, really? They're totally isolated from the world. They don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm right, Lauren.
You get so riled up about these types of things. And it's just happening again. Just getting riled up. It's going to be okay. You're going to make it. You will be there. You're not going to miss anything.
We're still not sure I'm getting out of jury duty in Portage County.
This guy.
I wrote an impassioned letter.
Maybe that's why they're not letting you get out of it.
And they said it had to be submitted in writing is the only way. So I did it, and I haven't heard back. I'm supposed to call Friday.
Okay, so then you call Friday, and they're like, oh, yeah, we got your letter. Thanks so much. We'll see you in 3 months when we ask you again, so you can just push it along.
You are buying me the nicest dinner if I'm stuck here
and
for
if
jury duty.
I'm right, what am I getting? Okay.
I'll think about that.
Thank you.
I'll tell you were right on the radio.
Thanks.
You have to do it nicely, not the begrudging.
Well, she gets that from me every day.
You're right.
She gets that every day.
No.
Yeah, you do. Okay. We had a YouTube comment that Daria saw that she wanted to bring to our attention to chat about.
Yeah, so last week we had a conversation about Gen Z and marriage, and studies are showing that they might be less into hookup culture and more likely to get married than millennials and even in some cases Gen Xers.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great news. We did, however, get a couple comments. This one stood out to me. In response to they're more likely to get married, quote, they have that opinion out of ignorance, which is quickly being rectified. Gen Z has an average age of what, 20? Wait about 5 to 10 more years. By that point, enough of them will have learned that everything that Gen X has been saying about marriage is true. In addition, enough of Gen Y will be there as other living examples of why men should not get married, period, unless you enjoy pain, misery, and having somebody strip you of everything you've worked for thus far and will earn you 18 more years if you have kids too. Men as a whole will not pursue marriage until society and the laws change to correct the disgusting anti-male status quo that we currently have. And so yes, there's a lot here. There's a lot here. But
there is a lot here.
The one thing I wanted to pull out, I mean, we know that there are just some angry people out there that are hurt by what they've seen from marriage. But I wanted to pull out, because I've seen it a lot, is that it's not fair that in the case of a divorce, and we are pro-marriage, we think that there are very few circumstances in which you should be getting divorced and that God wants reconciliation and all that. But in the case of a divorce, is it okay that a woman can get up to half of the family assets? And I've seen this a lot, not just in secular circles. I've actually seen this in Christian circles, complaining that, my wife never worked. She stayed home with the kids. Why does she get half of my retirement? So I wanted to know, what do we think of this, and how should Christians respond when we see very angry, marriage-hating comments like this?
Well, we're up against a break, but I'm so shocked, I guess. You really have seen Christians make that argument?
Yeah.
Are they in a different planet, or
Not necessarily like we shouldn't get married, although I have seen some of that from Christians, but specifically if I get divorced, it's not fair that my wife gets half of my stuff.
Okay, let's talk about that together here in just a few minutes. Plus, there's other parts of this we got to talk about.
There's many
too.
parts here.
So we'll get to all that in just a minute.
If you're 65 or older, you know this. Seeing your healthcare costs go up and up is frustrating. And maybe you were just notified that your Medicare costs are increasing again, or you're just tired of the massive deductibles. Well, here's some good news. There's a program that can really help with this. It's MediShare 65 Plus. It's an affordable, reliable alternative. You can choose any Medicare provider. You get telehealth access anytime you need it. And MediShare 65 Plus is a low-cost option for those with Medicare Parts A and B, and it fills in the gaps where Medicare stops. MediShare is a Christian healthcare community that aligns with your faith. People actually pray for you. They encourage you, and it's proven, too. It's been going strong for over 30 years now. So call now. You can get one low monthly price for up to 10 years. You're not stuck with increasing costs. You can do something about this today. Call MediShare 65 Plus. Find out how much you can save. Call 833-59-SHARE. That's 833-59-SHARE. 833-59-SHARE.
You can download some pretty weird apps for your phone. For instance, there's an excuse generator. There's an app that creates fake chat threads. There's even a nothing app that does nothing but display a blank screen. Amusing? Maybe. But we've got an app that's guaranteed to help you take that next step in your walk with Christ. It's Today in the Word, based on Moody Bible Institute's daily devotional. Sign up at todayintheword.org. That's todayintheword.org.
Pour another cup of coffee and settle in for engaging, Christ-centered conversations. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's 8:20 here on Mornings with Brian. Thanks so much for joining us. So we're having a conversation, actually kind of a follow-up to something we talked about last week, where Gen Z is trending more towards marriage and away from hookup culture, which is great news. So we clipped that, we put it on YouTube, and then we got some very interesting comments on that YouTube video. One of them, just to give you an overview, marriage is horrible, according to this person, and favors the woman, and men should not sign up, especially because in the case of a divorce, your spouse gets everything. Your wife, whoever, she gets everything, or half of everything.
Yeah.
And they don't think that's fair. And this is actually something I've seen a lot, both in secular and in Christian circles, where it's quote unquote not fair that we're going to split everything halfway in the case of a divorce. And I do want to reiterate that, God does not want, us to get divorced in an ideal situation. There are, of course, provisions in Scripture. We've gotten into that before. But when divorces do happen, because they do, what do we think of this? How should we respond to comments like this?
Yeah, and, my gut reaction is I want to be like, what in the world is this person thinking? They got a serious problem. But then I fall into the trap we just talked about before. So what would be the argument for someone saying it's not fair that a couple split everything 50-50?
I would venture to say that person is going through or has gone through a divorce.
Oh, yeah, that's clearly in a lot of pain.
Yeah, because that tends to be the objective people who've never been in that situation think, oh, well, it only makes sense. You're basically a partnership, so when you dissolve the partnership, you should each get half. And when you're in it, you're like, no, I've worked so hard for this, and she just stayed home and raised the kids. She did nothing. Well, have you ever thought about how hard she worked doing that?
Yeah, I mean, Ron, that's the only conclusion I can draw is this person viewed them as the breadwinner doing the actual work, and it's their money and their retirement. When in a marriage contract, even, that's not how that works.
No.
So I don't know where they could draw that conclusion.
I mean, it's really easy, though, when you're getting a divorce, like on your wedding day, you're like, yes, we're combined. We are doing this life together. But then sometimes when divorces do happen, you really hate this person. And I think it's really hard to see that you, even though your marriage is ending, that you once made a commitment to share everything. And I do think Ron is spot on that there is some people don't recognize that being a stay-at-home mom is a job and is providing a valuable service for the house. And because she wasn't bringing in an income, then what does she get? And I do think, and we can talk in another discussion about, I do think things are a little bit skewed sometimes. But I think the reason that things are roughly an even split most of the times is because when you have a stay-at-home mom that has not been able to work for 10 plus years, she doesn't really have anything that's in her name alone. She hasn't earned an income. So what's going to happen if her husband decides to leave her, she's going to be homeless. How is she supposed to provide for herself, let alone her children in that case?
Yeah, I mean, and she took care of your kids while you earned a retirement income, so she shouldn't be able to retire? I mean, they're your kids, you jerk. I hate to say it like that, but yeah. I mean, I took a leave of absence for a couple of my kids. When I was a teacher, they had good paternity leave. I couldn't wait to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
There was no question Sarah was working harder than me.
I agree.
And yet she just wasn't getting paid for it.
Right.
So I don't know what to say about that perspective other than it's wicked. Like if a Christian holds that, there's no reasonable way for which a Christian could hold that view. I guess the only way you could, okay, let me create a scenario where it would make sense, maybe. You've married a total deadbeat woman. You don't have any children. She lays in bed all day while you work and support the two of you. She refuses to do anything ever.
Except shop.
Yeah, so maybe in that scenario, I go, wow, that seems unfair then that he has to give her half. And yet at the same time, you entered into a covenant. Like a Christian would say covenant. Legally, it's a contract. It's like you're sharing, equal. What do you expect? Make better choices in a spouse next time, I guess. I don't know what else to say to that. Goodness gracious. Now, but what do you make of he said a couple other things I want to chat about. He said men should not get married, period, he said, unless you enjoy pain, misery, and having somebody strip everything from you.
I think he had a traumatic divorce, and my heart hurts for him for that. But he's making generalizations because he was hurt.
And he says part of his reason for that is the, quote, disgusting anti-male status quo we currently have in our society.
Historically speaking, the courts have favored women. They get the child's, they get custody of the children, and the men have to pay child support to the woman as she raises the kids. That tends to be the case. There's others, but that as society equalizes and as the glass ceiling is shattered and women are free to work the same jobs as men and to make the same money as men, then there's less and less of the need for that within the courts. But it has been a need.
Yeah, and I did some research on this. I'm no lawyer. I just pretend to be one on the radio when Nathan's with us, Nathan Zion. But according to many legal websites, the idea that mothers are favored in the courts is a myth. In fact, it was the headline of, here's the headline from one law firm, "Mothers are favored by the courts and other myths about divorce and child custody." It said it's a very common myth. The assumption is that the mother will automatically get custody of any children involved in a divorce, or at the very least, that the judge is most likely to rule in her favor. The reason this myth exists is that back in the day, women's primary role was caregiver, stay at home, raise the kids, and tend the house. Judges, who were primarily men, saw the women's role as caretakers as a good reason to give them custody of the kids. But today, things have changed. Women are also in the workforce and not necessarily home all day. And so the question now comes down to what's in the best interest of the children. Well, in many cases, this is indeed for the mother to have custody. It's dangerous to assume this will always be the case.
Right.
And by the way, one legal website said men make a lot of mistakes where they like pack up and leave. And you don't have to do that. In fact, legally, you ought to stay together because it makes it look like you are abandoning your family if you pack up and leave.
Yeah.
And that will not work in your favor in divorce proceedings. So, but here's one of the things I wanted to share as well. It would be rude and unbiblical for us to assume that this guy's an idiot and totally irrational. Like, I don't like when people dismiss something. So he's got a lot of pain. What's some truth behind the pain, do you think?
I mean, it seems fairly obvious that he had a very painful marriage, that he was very hurt by his ex-wife, or if he wasn't married, his dad and his mom had a very painful marriage and it's affected him deeply.
And that's understandable that it would affect you deeply. I mean, he may have even been abused in his marriage. And so he could feel that there is an injustice happening to him if he's abused in a relationship and she gets half.
Yeah.
That would be an injustice. Why does it matter that we do that exercise?
Because we're people of truth and honesty. And if we just jump to conclusions, we just propagate the myths that are out there. And how can we be compassionate to people if we just assume, okay, well, you're a bad guy because you got a divorce and you're the male.
Yeah, and I mean, I did some research, and I mean, both parties in a marriage dissolution can claim alimony. Both can share custody. Most of the situations I know from my children's peers, there's shared custody. You don't often hear about somebody totally shut out. In fact, it's still not legal, even if somebody has full custody. You can't like pack up and leave the state without the consent of the parent, the other parent.
Right.
So, I don't know. It makes me feel sad for this guy, and yet it also makes me kind of reinvigorated to the idea that we have a lot of work to do in what it means to be a healthy marriage.
Both within the church and showing people outside the church what it means. Because I don't know if this man is a Christian, but I'm telling you, I have seen not quite this intense and harsh, but similar sentiments from people within the church or that would claim they're in the church.
Oh, and he was watching a Christian radio show.
Yeah.
Ours. And he was posting on it. It's very possible.
It is entirely possible, but we also don't want to assume that he has a Christian background because your ideas of marriage are totally different if you weren't raised in a Christian home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how tragic that they were in a marriage where he felt like that. Pain and... I mean, it breaks the Lord's heart, I think, when marriages fall apart.
Yeah.
And as Jesus even talked about, it's like because of the hardness of our hearts, divorce is allowed. And talk about hard-hearted. That's what this guy sounds like. So I don't know how he fixed this. But I can say I think it's terrible to see on social media how that can even work into the destructive nature of the utopian idea of marriage, where couples make it look as if everything's great in their marriage, when all that ends up doing is making the rest of us feel like there's something wrong with us. You know, your spouse makes you angry, you open up your phone, and then, oh, look at those two. They went on vacation.
We've talked about this before about older couples discipling younger couples. And also being honest with people that are of marriage age or entering into marriage about, like, listen, this is worthwhile and it's amazing, but it's also really hard and it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well said, sister. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's 8:32. We're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to hear the testimony of a local family who went through a very difficult situation. We'll hear the whole story and how the Lord brought them through in just a few minutes.
The following is but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt and I couldn't pay my bills. I was feeling so bad. I got to a point where I needed some help. So I reached out and contacted Trinity.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838 to talk to a certified counselor.
They were able to take all of my different payments and put them all together.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
And they were actually able to work with my creditors. I've been able to pay off close to $15,000 in the last 18 months.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm debt-free for keeps.
1-800-659-9838.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Loving God with our hearts and our minds. It's Mornings with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios on Moody Radio Cleveland. Our whole team is pleased to bring into the studio an author and a local woman. Her name is Melissa Harris. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you here. Now, you and your husband, Mike, live in Cleveland?
Yes.
And you have how many kids again?
We have 3.
And what are their ages right now?
So right now they are 12, 11, and 8.
Okay, God bless you. Yeah, I have 5 kids, and you're in that 12-year-old. Is it a boy or girl? 12-year-old.
Girl.
Okay. Oh, buckle up, sister.
She's fantastic.
She's listening right now, I'm sure.
Please, Lord, please.
Yeah, no. Raising kids is such an adventure, and you actually, you're going to share with us a powerful testimony of something that happened in your family, and to do that, we have to go back to October of 2020. Which the minute I saw the date of what happened to your family, I was like, oh no, that October of 2020 was horrible.
Horrible.
We'd already been in lockdown for 6 months by then or so, right?
Yep.
So what was it like for your young family in COVID? I mean, locked in like that.
So we actually didn't put our kids in school that year. So
Okay.
we were homeschooling.
So it wasn't that dramatic.
No, we actually just chose to back away from it. My husband was a youth pastor at the time, so we could go down into his room and spend a lot of time there. So thankfully, we weren't too cooped up. And sometimes we would just go for a drive. We'd go up to the lake,
Nice.
spend time up there.
Yeah, I suddenly realized that there's an outside during the pandemic. And you guys did something a lot of people did, I would imagine. You decided on October 29th to go to Hocking Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell folks who haven't been there what that is and everything?
Yeah, Hocking Hills is a national forest area where there's just absolutely beautiful terrain. So you just go hike. There's so many beautiful areas out there. And we got a cabin, secluded, and it was just absolutely beautiful, amazing.
Yeah, I've heard so many great things about it. Have you guys been there? Ron, have you been down to Hocking Hills?
No, not yet.
I have. It's wonderful.
And she's lived here the least of all of us. Way to go, guys.
No.
I've wanted to go. But
Hocking Hills is further down south.
it's closer to Columbus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess you do have a good
It's
reason.
in Logan County, I believe.
Okay. Who's been there? Not me.
I have.
So, Melissa, tell us what happened. So you get the cabin. It's October 29th. You're in Hocking Hills. Tell us about that terrible day.
So yeah, we had gotten there a few days before, and this was the last full day that we had. So we headed out, and it was actually raining, so it was a little bit of a rough day, but we're like, it's our last day, we're going to go anyway. Let's be adventurous. So we went for one hike, and then it started raining really hard. So we ended up waiting around for a couple hours, finding places to go. We almost went back to the cabin, but we just decided we're like, let's hold out. And sure enough, the rain stopped. So we went to Congo Salo, which was, it's a gorge. So you can either take the lower trail, which is by far the safer one, or the upper trail where you're going around the rim, and it's 200-foot drop.
Oh.
So we spent a long time trying to figure out, should we do the upper trail or the lower trail? If we do the upper trail, we got to hike the kids all the way up there. That doesn't sound fun, and somebody could fall, right? Let's just not do that.
Little
and it's
kids
a little
love
west.
cliffs.
Yes,
they love
right,
going to
right?
the edge
to
of
the
cliffs.
edge of the cliff, and right. So we ended up taking the lower trail, and it's a paved path. I mean, by far the safest path that you could take. So we just very slowly, walking, hanging out. Mike and Mia were, kind of chasing each other, running, like they were doing a track meet. And of course, right at the end, Mike would let Mia win. Oh, I can't believe you beat me.
And how old is Mia again at
and
this time?
Mia was 4. Mia was
okay.
4. They're just sweetest, cutest little thing. We came to a little cave, took a few pictures, and I just remember that moment because it was the last pictures that we took before the accident happened. So about a minute after that, my brother Scott was with us, so he and I were just kind of hanging out, slowly walking behind, and they kind of all disappeared around a turn. And so Mariah was first, Mia was in the middle, Micah was coming up on the rear, and Mike behind them. They all disappeared around the corner. And then I had just heard Mike yell, "Oh, Mia." And there, just the way he said it, Scott and I just looked at each other like, what happened? So we took off and went around the corner. And by the time we had gotten there, Mike was already holding Mia and just holding her in a cradled position. And I mean, just that moment, I'm looking at her and I'm looking at him. And it was this instant moment of she's gone. I mean, she looked absolutely lifeless.
And those kind of moments are just melted into your memory.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I bet right now you can see it like it's a movie.
I can see everything.
So what happened?
So at the time, honestly, I don't even know if I knew what happened, just in all the chaos and the craziness, but a tree branch fell. So after they went and did the investigation, it was a 6-inch diameter tree branch, and it fell from about 60 feet.
And she could have never known it was coming.
No.
And it hit her head?
Yeah, it hit her right on the right side of her head. Kind of right and just a little bit off to the right, not quite on the top. Yeah. And all that I found out later. In the moment, it was just, when he said, "Oh, Mia," I'm thinking, what could have happened?
Right.
She couldn't have really
run a paved
fallen.
path.
Like, yeah. So at that point, I mean, just that moment of like, she's gone.
You thought she had died
I
at
thought
that moment.
I thought she was gone.
Because it was just
She's
lifeless?
just lifeless.
Well, and then you're in the middle of a park.
Yeah.
Like, how far were you from any sort of phone or help or something?
So we were about half hour back on the trail.
Did you have your cell phone?
So we did. And once, so Mia, after about maybe, I'm out guessing half hour, half a minute, maybe 45 seconds, she let out this awful scream. And the way I write it is like, it was this involuntary scream just deep down. So it was a moment of like, just, my daughter's in so much pain, but she's alive. So just that moment was just this awful but beautiful moment at the same time. And it was like, go get help, go run. So Mike handed her to me and just took off running. I mean, just hearing him yell, "Help, help." And we were the only ones on the trail because when we came into the parking lot, we were the only car. So not long after that, he ran into hikers that ended up being a cool part of our story. And just told him what happened very briefly as he's running up there because he didn't have any cell service. He was assuming he was gonna have to get to the parking lot, get to his car, and drive somewhere where he had service because there's just no service out there. And at one point he stops, and he would remembered a couple days before he's fidgeting with his phone, and he did the whole like power thing 5 times, and it makes the SOS come up. Well, he never would have thought of that, but just a few days before it happened, and so he did that. And he made the call and got crystal clear 911. So
now the hiker part of this. Tell us that part. You said that's a cool part of the story. The hikers he passed and told what happened. What happened with the hikers?
So they ended up coming pretty quickly. So they must not have been long after we came in. They must have, because again, it had just stopped raining, so people probably started coming back to the hikes. So he told them, and they came to me. And at this point, I mean, it's like it all just happened. I'm trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
Do I need to do CPR? Do I, what is going on? And then, so they offered to take Mariah and Micah back to the parking lot. And so it was just this moment of like, man, am I really going to send my 2 kids with somebody I don't know? They seem like a nice couple, but I think it was more about just being alone. So, but it was either that or keeping them with me.
Which could traumatize them to begin with because they're seeing their sister.
What if Mia did pass during that time, and just watching
It's
me
an
deal with
impossible
that.
choice.
Yeah.
So how did you choose?
I just felt like it was the lesser of the evils.
To have them go with
to send. And that was the first, and I wrote about it. It was the first moment that I'm like, I trust God will take care of them. And then I'm like, but he didn't take care of Mia. So why should I trust him to take care of my other 2 kids?
Yeah.
But very quickly, I just decided it was the best choice.
And
so,
it was. I mean, what else can you do?
Just watching them walk off, though, was awful.
I can't even imagine. And your brother stayed with you?
So I don't know. It all was just so crazy. And then a few chapters later in the book, I explained that the first time I really even thought about Scott, my brother, was when I saw him. And it was probably a good 15, 20 minutes later. And when I was dealing with Mia, at that point, I had laid her down on the ground because the EMS told me I should. And I looked up and I saw him. And it was after I had put Mia down on the ground. I was looking her over about every 30 seconds or so. She would come conscious, scream, and then go unconscious again. So when I laid her down and I'm looking her over, it was the first time that I had seen the side of her head. Because this whole time I'm like, what happened? I still don't know what happened. I don't see anything.
And you're
she has
processing
big
at
curly
lightning
hair.
speed.
Yeah. So she has big curly hair. So it covered the wound. But finally, I mean, it was about the size of a softball just sitting on the side of her head. Oh. And I saw it. And I just put my hand on it. And I'm like, her skull's crushed. So at that point, it's like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, when are we going to lose her? And then I looked up, and my brother was a little ways down. He had hands on his head, pacing around like, I don't know what to do. And he said to me, he said, I saw that. He said, I saw it, but I didn't want to tell you. So I don't know if when he was looking at her from a distance, he probably saw it before I did. So that was the first time I remember Scott being there.
Wow. It's 8:47. You're listening to Mornings with Brian. Melissa Harris is with us, local woman from the Cleveland area, mom, wife, wrote a book about this terrible experience she just went through. We'll continue hearing the rest of the story here after a quick break.
Moody Radio is thankful for listeners and support from businesses like Duma Meats and Farm Market. Duma Meats and Farm Market supporting Moody Radio in Cleveland and surrounding areas. More information about Duma Meats and Farm Market is at dumameats.com.
Moody Radio is on the air thanks to the support of listeners and Hawkins Sales. They've been serving our region's electrical industry for over 40 years. More information about Hawkins Sales is at hawkinssales.com.
Hey, my name is Brant Hansen, and I have a tough job. I have 30 seconds to tell you about the most beautiful Jesus-shaped thing I've ever seen in my life, and now more like 22 seconds, but it's Cure International Children's Hospitals. They do surgeries by the thousands every year, all in the name of Jesus. Tens of thousands become Christians every year in these hospitals. Imagine proclaiming the kingdom and healing the sick. It's that good. Check it out. There's nothing like it. More people need to know about this. It's cure.org/Moody, cure.org/Moody.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Melissa Harris with us in studio, a mom, a wife from the Cleveland area who recently published a book about her experience she's been sharing with us. If you're just tuning in, her family was spending some time a couple of years ago at Hocking Hills, and her had her 3 kids, her 4-year-old daughter, and the kids rounded a corner and a branch fell and hit her daughter in the head. And so they're in the middle of nowhere trying to get help. Your husband was able to reach emergency services. Mm-hmm. How long did you have to wait till EMS showed up?
About a half hour. Yeah, it was about a half hour. And hearing, that's the one thing to this day that still I hear sirens. You know, I see an ambulance, it just hits me differently now. But it's like I could hear the sirens and then they would disappear. And then I'd hear them again and then it would disappear because they're driving all through the terrain.
So did they have to actually drive on the path to come all the way down?
No, just like to get through the national forest.
How did they get to you? Did they have to like push the gurney?
Yeah, they ran a gurney back to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so once they got there, and then I finally, like, it was loud and it stayed, and I'm like, I think they're here now. And then they had, and actually I learned this later, it was actually the firefighters that got there first. So they actually ran back and got her, and then the EMS met them about halfway down the path and ran off of her.
And so they stabilized her and then just ran towards the parking lot with her on us. Yeah. And as with a mom's heart, you're just
that was even worse. It was even worse, her leaving, because then it was like I really had no control. You know, I mean, prayer, of course, was the one thing I had.
And what was your prayer life like at that moment? Because for those who haven't been through something like that, you'd imagine some sort of eloquent prayer. I mean, what was it like for you?
Oh, please don't take her.
Yeah. Just
over and over again, please don't take her. 4 years wasn't enough. I just over and over again. And one of the, like, it is not an accident that I remembered randomly, probably the Holy Spirit, the woman that touched Jesus' cloak. The just came to my mind. I wouldn't have been able to tell you where it was. And I just started praying that because I remember the story about the woman touched his cloak and he felt the power come out. And so I was like, I'm like, if the power of God is that strong and I have the power of the Holy Spirit living in me, then God can heal her. And this was after she gave me a tiny bit of hope. One of the times that she came conscious, I could see her fight because her eyes were always way up in her head. I could see her fight to, like, I think, follow my voice, to bring her eyes to center. And I'm like, she's there, like, she's there. So that's when it can't, now I'm like, and now I'm praying for a miracle. Like, I'm praying for a miracle because a miracle is all we have at this point. So aside from just these short, just bursts of prayer over and over again, I'm like, Lord, if the power of Jesus is that strong and I have the power of the Spirit living in me, then you can heal her. Lord, please heal our daughter. So just over and over again praying that. And then to talk about prayer a little bit more, my husband actually, he said when he was on the path running and making the phone calls, just saying out any name of Jesus he could think of. He's like, I want God to know that he is everything in my life, not just healer when I need him. Like every name he could think of Jesus, he was just saying over and over again and just praying. And then even at one point when he was driving after everything, he actually stopped his car when he had service and started calling people because he's like, that is the thing, that if our daughter has any chance at all, it's just getting prayer warriors praying.
And all I can think of when I hear you say all that is the value of having God's word hidden in your heart.
Yep.
It's one of those things that just, you don't have to find them.
Mm-hmm.
They just come out.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
And that's where my life has been pretty easy, if you will. Grew up in a Christian home, went to Christian college, worked in churches a lot, never really dealt with anything. And I've always wondered, you don't really know if your faith is real or not until you're truly tested. I thought it was real and I felt like it was real. And even all the scriptures I talk about in the book, like, I did not know where they all were at the time. They just were scriptures that were coming to my mind or passages to think about. It wasn't until after, and I started writing, that I was looking them up. His eyes on the sparrows, and I'd look it up. And so, but I learned that it was all there. It was in my heart, it was in my mind, and it was there when I needed it.
I can't even imagine that. It's the moments where you're powerless that you're suddenly confronted with God's sovereignty. We, especially as parents, we create this scenario in which we think we have control. And when you encounter powerlessness, it's indescribable.
Absolutely. And there was something where it's like there was this humility. And so many times I went through of like, we have a chance. There's no way. God can save her. We're not taking her home. Just back and forth and back and forth. But getting to a place where it was like, okay, worst case scenario, she passes. She's in heaven with Jesus. I 100% believe that. And there is comfort in that. And there's almost part of me that in my head, I'm like, we should all be envious. She gets to be with Jesus. She had an amazing life. She was loved. She had great brothers and sisters. She had friends. She knew nothing but joy and happiness. And so getting to that place of like telling myself why it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if she passed.
But it's almost like you're convincing yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those times when you're speaking truth that is true, and you're like, Lord, help me actually feel this, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to the ambulance. Did you ride in the ambulance or did your husband?
No, I had a little bit of a fight with one of the ODNR officers, the kind of like police officer, because they weren't letting me in the ambulance. And I started getting pretty frustrated where I'm like, if she's going to pass, I want to be with her. I don't want her to be alone. So we went back and forth. She went in, she came back out. She said, they're not going to let you in. And the thing she said finally was like, look, there's a lot of people in there trying to save your daughter's life. And there was just something about that I just collapsed. And I was like, okay, I've got to trust that they just need to do what they know how to do. And I need to just trust God. And so I let it go. And then just went over to talk with our other kids, kind of try to gather myself after I just finally, up until this point, I'd held myself together. But that's when I just lost it.
It must have been that critical of a situation that you couldn't ride in there with them. That really kind of...
In talking with EMS after, we learned a lot more about her state.
Because we only have just a couple of minutes left, we can leave some of the rest of the story for folks to find in your book. But take us now to the hospital, and she's gotten the critical care she needs. Did you get the miracle you were hoping for, and what was it like?
Yes, less than 24 hours later, they told us they were going to try to wake her up because they had her in an induced coma, and it was that moment of, this is going to tell it all. Is she going to wake up? Is she going to be Mia? Are we, the Mia that we knew before the accident? So to make a long story short, they pulled the tube out. She instantly started crying, and she just yelled out, "I peed in my pull-up." Which...
That's such a 4-year-old thing to say. And you're like, she'll be okay.
It's like, because she hates that feeling. She would come in our room in the middle of the night and want another pull-up because she had peed in it and didn't want to go back to sleep. So it was one of those moments where it's like, it's Mia. Like, oh my goodness. And just wanting to bombard her with questions. Do you know who we are? Do you know what happened? Do you know where you are? But it was that moment. That was the initial, our baby girl's, she's alive.
Yeah, it's a sweet memory, but what a gift from God that be what she says.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I knew the instant you said it, I was like, she's back.
Yeah.
It's her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And she's okay now.
She's okay. If you met her today, you would have no idea unless we told you that she had anything happen to her. And a lot of people that meet her, doctors, things like that, they would actually stop and be like, is this Mia? Like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we read her charts like 3 times, and this is not what I expected to see.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm looking at the picture on the book and on the website. She's just beautiful. You talked about her beautiful hair. It's just thick, curly, beautiful hair. Wow. So, again, our guest today has been Melissa Harris. She's a local woman, but an author. And I say but because local sounds so small. But my prayer is that your story be one that touches people's lives and shows them the truth of who God is and how good He is. If folks want to learn more about your story and perhaps get a copy of the book called Rewrite This Tragedy, love the title. How can they learn more?
Well, we do have a website, rewritethis.org, and it also has some videos and things to kind of help connect even more with the story and with our family. But pretty much anywhere Christian books are sold. So.
Again, it's Rewrite This Tragedy, and you can go to rewritethistragedy.org, rewritethistragedy.org, or reach out to us. Support someone in our community who's sharing the truth of Jesus Christ through their traumatic situation. And thanks for sharing your heart. Sometimes people would be tempted to kind of just make it a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. But no, it's a miracle from the Lord. That was absolutely. A painful miracle. Mm-hmm. But pain is God's invitation to grow, as we say here on the show sometime.
Amen.
Melissa, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And guys, we got to get going here. So JD Greer can